To call to order the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee meeting today, Monday, June 20th. And acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Do a slight change to the agenda in that we have a number of new members to the committee, and I'd like to have them introduce themselves, give us a brief background, and so that we can get to know them a little bit as we get started. And why don't we start with Barb?
My name is Barb Bergwerf. I'm a 22-year resident of the island and member of the Turtle Team, retired professional photographer and children's book publisher.
I'm Chaz Akers. I've been on the island for a short time, 1 year, 7 months. I have 30 years of marketing experience, both the client and agency side, and look forward to serving this committee.
Doug, why don't you?
I'm Doug Truslow. I'm a member of the ATAX committee. My background is I married somebody from the Isle of Palms in 1971. Always had a house. When she retired, she wanted to move back. So here I am.
I'm Ray Burns. I've been on the island full-time about 8 years. I've owned property about 20 years here. My background is in manufacturing. I ran a manufacturing business for about 30 years. I've been on the committee for 1.5 years, and I'm looking forward to the new members and making progress on our initiatives.
And I'm Christy Lorenz, been on the island for 17 years, raised 2 of my kids here, 15 and 16, soon to be 16 and 17. And I'm in the hospitality industry. One here on the island, Sullivan's Island, Mount Pleasant, West Ashley.
Okay, the first order of business, I'd like to discuss the approval of previous meetings minutes of April 13th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item, financial statements, and that presentation will be given by Debbie Suggs.
Hello, everyone. I will go through the May statements for the state accommodations tax fund. Any of you new members who have questions, please stop me as I go through. If I don't make anything clear, you just want more information. Some general points. The state ATAX money obviously comes from the state of South Carolina. We get quarterly payments. There is this separate general ledger fund where most of that, those payments are deposited. And then we also, all the expenditures of the fund or state ATAX expenditures are accounted for in this one fund. So it's a standalone fund. The only monies from the state that don't get deposited here that are related are the general fund piece that comes off the top and it gets deposited from each other. We'll talk about that more in a minute and see what I'm talking about. But as of May 30th, 2022, and the city has a fiscal year that ends June 30. So we are, this is the 11th month of the city's fiscal year. We are, we have about 2.5 million in cash, 90,000 worth of accounts payable, a fund balance of 2.46 million. So a very healthy fund balance. Next page is the revenue page. You can see it's made up of the 4 quarterly payments and then the year-to-date interest income. We keep a small amount of cash in a local bank. The city uses Truist for our local checking. the lion's share of the funds are deposited at the state local government investment pool, which is an investment pool managed by the state treasurer's office, and it's geared towards local governments. There's state law that governs what a local government can invest in. So by using the LGIP, which is what we call it, we are certain that we're only investing in the proper instruments. They're usually federally backed mortgage securities and such. And it's professionally managed at that level. In May, the interest rate was 0.881. So not a super good interest rate, but it's very safe money, and we can have 24-hour liquidity on it if we need to make a call. Okay, so the meat of the presentation is usually the expenditures of state ATAX funds that happened since the last meeting of this committee. I will go through all the spending so far this year for the benefit of the new members.
And we're, just so that we know if y'all are following us, we are in the document that comes right after the minutes.
Thank you.
Make sure everybody's kind of,
Okay. Thank you.
so we're on page 3 of that financial packet. It starts with the city of All Palms State Accommodations Tax Balance Sheet. Then the revenues, and the
Okay.
third page, we start with,
Expenses.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're good.
all right,
Sorry, I don't think I had that in mind.
So one of the main things of expenditures that is funded by state ATAX money is the operation of the city's public restrooms located at Murphy. So all the utilities, maintenance, the cleaning and paper supplies, insurance for the building, the cleaning, and the city employee that attends the restroom are all accounted for here. Year to date, the amount is $69,503 against a budget of $134. And the reason the budget is $134 is we've got lots of money in the maintenance line just to account for or provide for any maintenance issues that come up. Obviously, for a public restroom, there are things that come up a lot. The building has been significantly renovated in the past year or so. So currently, you can see that we haven't had, so far this year, we've spent less than $6,000, but we like to have a placeholder for maintenance if it's needed. Next up is the Beach Barrel and Front Beach Business District trash pickup contract. This is JLG Enterprises. This business services the yellow trash barrels on the beach and on the road at the beach access. So up and down the whole length of the aisle. The machine that you see if you're out there early in the morning or late in the afternoon. That's it. They also service the trash receptacle in the Front Beach business district. So moving on, we have irrigation at the Breach Inlet sign. Beach trash barrels, the yellow barrels are paid for from this fund. We haven't had much expenditure this year. There's budget for things that has not yet been expended and will probably be rebudgeted or has been rebudgeted into FY23. Repair of a sidewalk in the Front Beach area. The t-shirt promo, that is something we do here at City Hall. If you go to the city's website, there's a place where you can fill out a form and come to City Hall and get a free t-shirt. That program has been in place for years and years. It continues to be popular. And it gives us the opportunity to interact with people, visitors, and if they always have questions about restaurants or things to do. So it's a good program. And this committee or the state ATAX funds purchases the t-shirts that we distribute.
So just one addition to the expenditure for sidewalks at Front Beach. So not a whole lot of people know this, but the city owns the section of road between 10th and 14th Avenue. All the other roads are owned by SCDOT. So the maintenance of both the sidewalk and the road in that section of Ocean Boulevard are the city's responsibility.
Okay, next page where you see some expenses associated with the events that are put on by the city's rec department, so music in the park, that event hasn't happened yet, these are deposits for the entertainers. The Easter egg hunt is traditionally funded here. Then for the police department,
I think you
Just skip
You
a
skip
page.
skipped a page.
I did, I'm sorry. So here's where we talk about the CDD and the portion of, you can see here what the city has paid. This is the 30% distribution from the quarterly payments that the city receives from the state. So we've made 3 quarterly payments so far this fiscal year. One more to go. We have not received that quarterly payment from the state yet. Next is the state ATAX fund provides 75% of the debt service payment on the a bond that the city issued to renovate the docks of the marina. 4th of July fireworks, the show will happen this year, and this fund traditionally covers those expenses. So this is just the deposit on the July 4th, 22 show. Because the fireworks show happens in July, there's always some crossover with the June 30 year end, so the 798 relates to last year's weekend. All the staff, public safety staff particularly, is on duty that weekend, and so typically there is a meal prepared in the public safety building for all of them to share. Another rec department expense associated with equipment. This is at the playground. At the bottom of that page, you can see that the state ATAX fund provides sponsorships for both the beach run and the connector run. We still have to make those transfers before the end of the fiscal year. I've reached out to them about that. Now we'll go into music in the park, which I've already talked about. Police department body armor. So this is the cost of body armor less a grant from SMIT, which that stands for South Carolina Municipal Insurance Reserve Trust. That's the city's workers' comp provider. They have a program where they will give, they call them grants for body armor. So we offset the cost with that, with whatever we receive from.
I'm sorry, could you get back through the fund salary and fringes, the line item above that?
Yes.
Beach service officers.
Yes, what is that for?
Oh, go ahead.
So the city, and I think it's probably 2 included in that $200,000, 2 full-time officers, and all of the beach service officers are funded with state aid tax. And that transfer just happens at the end of the fiscal year.
That's
How
for
many
the summer.
total officers? How many total?
So 10 BSOs, we budget to hire 10 BSOs, about 1 or 2, depending on how many we have available. We try to keep year round. But those folks are responsible for enforcing parking rules in the beach parking district. They also respond to calls on the beach, enforcement of the beach regulations such as the no smoking ban, the plastics ban. They also enforce parking along the street between 10th and 14th, the municipal parking lots. So they're essentially hired for the season.
Finding lost children.
finding missing children's on the, on the beach. I mean, anything that's needed, in addition to our officers throughout the summer. So the entirety of that operation is funded by state ATAX with the addition of 2 full-time officers that are patrol officers that we have year round are supported by state ATAX revenues.
Oh, and those are the guys, in the yellow shirts typically
Yes,
that we see.
The
Yes.
beach service officers.
Okay.
The other 2 are just 2 of our regular
Okay.
patrol officers.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The police department has replaced 1 low speed vehicle with state ATAX funds, that's in the budget. Next page are fire department expenses. So the annual debt service principal and interest payment on the 75-foot ladder truck is funded with state ATAX. And that's an annual expense until that loan is paid off. Then the one-time expense this year of 1/3 of the cost to replace the whole department's SCBA equipment, the tanks they wear when they go into a fire, was funded with state ATAX. The fire department also purchased a John Deere Gator ATV used primarily on the beach. And the public works department purchased replaced their Z-Track mower with state ATAX funds.
And then looking at the fund salary fringes for the fire department, are they seasonal as well, or? we don't-
No, we support, I believe it's 5 firefighters.
Okay, through this fund.
Through this
Okay.
revenue, and I think you can I believe the packet that we distributed for the orientation includes our current state ATAX budget. And you can see all of the operational, sort of ongoing operational costs to the city in order to support the tourism industry and support those operations, which are significantly impacted by tourism. They're being funded through these tourism dollars, not from property tax revenue through the general fund, which it's, I guess it's been the city's belief that some of these operations that are highly impacted, just police, fire, and public works particularly, by the influx of tourism in the season, are then supported by funds that are generated through tourism. So that's what that is.
And there are 3 departments in the city that are significantly impacted by tourism: police, fire, and public works. So on the next page, well, the typically there's no salaries covered by the state ATAX fund for public works, but we would fund expenses associated with, in this budget, it was a Z-Track mower, but in the past, we've done things like part of the fuel expense, that type of. Next page is the final page, and this is where we indicate the sponsorship. Most of these have been approved by this committee. The Carolina Coast Surf Club sponsorship, the sponsorship to the VFW, 2 Lovello sponsorships, and that's just 2 years that happened to fall in the same fiscal year. They were 2 separate events. And the Lens program, that's coming from the Iowa Pump Exchange Club.
And we'll talk a little bit as part of one of the 2 items under new business. We'll talk about the ATAX grant application process. This is what we're talking about. Requests that are submitted to the city throughout the year for tourism related expenditures that are eligible. And that you all review and then make recommendations on. So this is an example of those that have been approved and funded through this as a recommendation through this committee and ultimately approved by city council for actually, the approval of the actual funds.
Okay, any questions on any of those expenditures?
I had a question. You may know, how much do you anticipate for a yearly basis that we'll be paying to CVB? Or you can say to the state, and we can extrapolate. We know what we have for 3 quarters. What do we have? What do you project would be the whole year? 800, 1 million? Well,
somewhere in between there.
I can say that last year, June quarter, it was, the 30% number was $300,000. Traditionally, the year before last, it was low because of COVID. The previous 2 or 3 years, it ran in the high, it was like 180,000 to 190,000 in that range. So like 200,000, say.
Yeah, if you look at the last page in the financial statements, it looks like this.
I've got it.
So you can see by fiscal year for total FY 21, the total percent, the 30% of state aid tax that is required to be distributed to an agency to manage and direct those funds. The total was 733,000. For FY 20, that number was 504,000. And in FY 19 was almost 600,000. So you have that in your packet.
I understand. I was talking about where we are now, and I think I understood what both Debbie said and Ray said. We're talking about somewhere, I said 800 to 1 million. It's more like 900 to 1 million or more.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
current, but the budget that starts in July 1st, so our FY 23 budget, we're estimated that number to be 826,000 for the 30%.
I understand, but we always under budget. We always seems we always got a whole lot more. So I was trying to put it in sort of real terms.
The accommodations revenues that the city has been receiving have been higher than we anticipated.
Right.
And that would just.
So that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other questions for me?
Okay, well, thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
Next order of business is a discussion in consideration of request for ATAX funding from the IOP Chamber of Commerce for website development. Katrina, are you going to lead that?
Yeah. Yes.
Hi, my name is Katrina Limbach. I'm the president of the newly formed Chamber of Commerce. With me is Sandy Stone, longtime resident on Isle of Palms, owner of Island Realty, and also our treasurer. And just to be clear, we are here because we had an application for the grant that Desiree was discussing earlier. It was a $10,000 grant that we had applied for in, gosh, I think in April.
Mhm.
We then presented in May, just before the previous ATAX committee dissolved, I guess is the word, until the new one came. So we are looking for a grant to help us with our website and social media development. Since we originally applied, it's been a few months, so things have changed, and we've actually gotten some funding for our initial website design. And Explore Charleston has offered to pay for that in full, which we're very thankful for. But we also need help with our social media management and ongoing website support. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we're here for that grant and that those are the things that we're looking for. And then I'm going to very briefly go over my very long presentation, but I'm not going to go through everything. Actually, that was smart. I'm not going to go through all the slides. I'm just going to briefly kind of go through who we are, what we're looking to do as a Chamber of Commerce and DMO, because we are going to be branding the Isle of Palms. And I'm just going to go through that really quickly. Could you help me with the slides?
We want to do that.
Just click.
Which one?
Oh,
Is it one of these?
the clicker work? Yeah, good.
Oh, I can actually click, I think, if I'm mobile.
The up?
That's the TV. Oh, that's not the clicker.
No.
I think you have to use
It's a
your
guy
laptop.
thing. We want to.
Like this,
We need them.
go like that.
Actually, Katrina, you can't move too much. Yeah, let's turn that
All right.
microphone. Yeah. you're gonna need
I'm
that.
just gonna, all right.
And I think they have it in their packets.
Okay, perfect. Is it this presentation? Because I was unclear.
It was the one you used at the last
Last
meeting.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay. A little bit about who we are. We're the newly founded Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce. We're a modern hybrid destination organization and business association, officially incorporated in 501c6 in January. We opened for membership on April 26th, and we now have well over 20 members, I think 25 plus at this point, and really a lot of different types of businesses, focused a lot on hospitality and tourism. Our initial plan as a DMO, the number one thing that we're doing right now is we're going to be creating a professional, vibrant brand that focuses on experiential approach to marketing. We're going to do a professionally designed website, which is already in the process right now. We are currently building that website. We're in like the wireframe portion of it. We've completed our discovery and logo design already, but as everybody who's been in marketing knows, it takes a long time to really get these things discovered and brought to life. We are looking to have that launched at the end of the summer or early fall. We're also going to do an All Palms guide, our professionally managed and tracked targeted paid ads through Google Analytics, professionally designed ads in high profile locations for print media. We're going to be partnering on capital projects, hopefully to beautify Front Beach and help do some fun things with that. And then having a professionally managed social media account, really to engage with residents, potential tourists, giving that island lifestyle. And I'm going to kind of go over that a little bit in this. You can go ahead and click. I can click. Experiential marketing versus traditional. We're really looking to show what it's like to be on Owl Palms and live a day in the life. Instead of just trying to promote, come stay the night. We're saying, come stay the night, go to our businesses, go to the beach for the day, go take a golf, go eat at a great local restaurant, really experience Owl Palms from like a local perspective. So that's what we're trying to do. And that's going to help us, instead of just create these overnight visitors, create overnight visitors who then come back generation after generation. So they come back with their kids in 10, 15 years and, tell their friends about it and really, have stories about what they did and what they experienced, the island lifestyle. Really getting that brand is something that they can interact with and experience and then go attract other people to do the same thing. So very multi-generational approach to this. These are just examples of like stories people would have if they came to the island and experienced a day in the life. They didn't just stay at a hotel room overnight. They experienced a day. And that can mean a lot of really cool things. This is our logo that we have had Blue Ion design for us. We're really excited with how it came out, embracing that palm, but maybe not being too literal about it. Having the sunshine, it's very fun and vibrant, which is what we're going for. Again, our website should be completed by the end of this summer or early fall, just depending on how this process is going. We're looking to have a very visitor and resident focused front end to the website to attract people to the businesses on the island. And again, that lifestyle, a guide. Right now, if you're looking what to do on Owl Palms, you're probably looking at TripAdvisor. There's really no good guide that's professionally designed by the heartbeat of the island, which are, the businesses when it comes to experiencing it. And residents, we want to get them involved as well. So that's what it looks like. I can't really give you a full on wireframe of what the website is going to look like because we're just not there yet in our development, but that's going to come really fast. And hopefully after launch, y'all can see, the product of what all this time has been about. That's just our guide, looking at analytics, really not something that's important to the grant process. Our social media, we will have that professionally managed. We're meeting this Thursday, I think 2 or 3, with another local company to look at our social media and how we can get that professionally managed to achieve all the things I'm talking about when it comes to that experiential marketing. Having a local company who can really facilitate that through social media is the best way to engage with consumers who are here and consumers who will potentially come back, and somebody who's really never been here before, through high-end images, drone video, different videos of experiencing our businesses and just our culture up here. We have great partnerships already and others to explore. Again, Explore Charleston has been a huge supporter from the very get-go. They have, I think, exceeded their Owl Palms budget just by giving us money to seed our website. We really value their partnership with them. The city's been very supportive. The police department, they're going to come, Chief Cornett is going to come speak at our next meeting. We're really about, where's the board? Connecting community. Yeah, June 28th. Connecting community. There you go. So connecting our communities, making partnerships, bridging gaps within our neighbor communities, and then also with our residents in our businesses in the city. So really bridging those gaps is an important part of why we formed. This is our vibrant island lifestyle is always in season. It's our tagline. It's part of our branding. They just finished their about us for the Isle Palms Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to read that to you really quickly to give you the feel for what we are and what we're going to be presenting on our website visually and with different taglines like the ones I showed you. So really quickly, I'd love for you all to hear this because I think it's beautiful. I did not write it. From the golden glow of sunrise to the pastel hues of dusk and every sun-soaked day in between, Isle of Palms is island living at its best. Tucked along the South Carolina coast, just outside of historic city of Charleston, Isle of Palms has drawn generations of beachgoers with its pristine natural landscape and easygoing feel. Home to many, a beloved escape to others, the island is an essential background for some of life's greatest moments. The Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce is a group of dedicated locals who know firsthand what makes this coastal enclave so special. A rare breed of southern beach town, Isle of Palms is an all-encompassing locale anchored by passionate residents and a unique collection of independent businesses. Together, they foster the vibrant character for which our island is known. Officially chartered in 2022, we're here to support this treasured community, offering insider guidance and neighborly connections to all who visit our shores and to those who never leave. I love it. I think it's so beautifully written. And that's really kind of a feel for what we're going for with the branding aspect. So we'd love your consideration in our grant application. And unless do you have something to add?
Just real quick, the whole purpose of this, of course, is to bring the community together, but it's to bring the businesses together too and be a representative and a voice for the business community. Currently, we have a very diverse membership. Bicycle rentals, graphic artists, chair and umbrella rentals, more than one, moped rentals, landscaping companies, financial planners, lawn maintenance companies, medical providers, salon owners, painting contractors, builders, restaurant owners, I believe that's hospitality, and vacation rental providers. Of the vacation rental providers currently that we've got as members, we represent over 1,200 of the 1,400 current licenses in the community for short-term rentals. So we're making some serious inroads into the membership and working with recruiting more.
Thank you, Sandy. Do y'all have any questions for us specifically about this grant and our application for it?
Could you go over what the grant is going to be used for, the 10,000?
So
specifically?
originally we applied for it for our website to be developed. We have since gotten funding for our website to be developed. Because we're in development right now, we're expecting to be over budget. So we're looking to either have it for that ongoing website or to seed our social media, or a combination of the three.
Seeding social media, meaning hiring someone to do,
Yeah, we have a contract right now that we want to sign for
and
to
who's the
have
contract with?
the Port City Port City Media. Bennett. I know his name is Bennett. He actually worked for Blue Iron in the past. Blue Iron does the Explore Charleston's website. They're very seasoned at marketing and digital media branding.
Tourism oriented
Mhm.
social media interaction is their specialty. So that's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Sure, I'll go. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very, very exciting. You're speaking about a lot of things to come in the future, and in terms of marketing spend, which is outside of this grant. So in terms of your budgets for actual marketing, where are those dollars and what is that proposed budget for the year that you'll be applying for the grant?
So
Conservatively, we're looking for an annual marketing budget around 120,000 a year to maintain the different resources that we're putting into place. That's conservatively, it probably realistically will be $175,000 a year.
Right.
As we grow. But to start and crawl and walk and run, I think that's what we're looking at for all of 23.
Okay. And there's, three aspects to marketing spend, right? There's the overhead, the heads to manage the process. There's the creative services, and then there's the actual media, which actually draws the visitors, to the site. Do you have any rough idea in terms of the amount of media that you're going to be spending to actually draw people to the site?
Again, I believe that's going to be the development side of things as we grow. We don't, because we're not there yet. We've looked at other spends, Sedona, Aspen. So we've done a little bit of our homework on that to try and determine about where we should be. We're not as big as they are with what we're doing, but we are competing in an arena with the Aspens of the world, the Sedona Valleys, and the other entities.
Understood.
And-
And are you developing two separate URLs, one chamber related, one DMO related, or
Good question. So currently what we're looking at doing is having a customer facing or visitor resident facing website with our URL IOP chamber, and then getting another URL to also feed to that. But again, we're just not there in the website process yet, because the beginning of our contract was all in discovery of branding, which took a lot of legwork, and we were really just hyper focused on the branding of like what we've explained and shown. We just got our logo selected last week. So as you know, like now we're jumping into the website, the wireframe, what it's actually going to look like when you land on the website. But for now, we're looking at one website, possibly two URLs drawing to that website. But again, we're flexible because we're so new, that it could eventually be that we have a chamber website that is specific to chamber members or chamber information, and then having a customer and visitor centered website. But for now, we're looking at more of a back end for our chamber members, and news maybe on a different site. But again, like Sandy had said, Aspen is a good one to look at if you're looking at like this hybrid model of attracting people to an area, but actually being member driven by businesses. It's really a unique type of structure.
okay?
We anticipate a lot of interaction with the membership to help guide us through this into into the next level,
Right.
and the next level. And as more members become engaged with the process and demand return on their investment, and want to look at the data, it's going to help determine which way we're going in terms of how we develop this site. Or if it's doing great, wonderful, we only need to spend $50,000 a year, yay, but that's
Right,
probably the
right.
case.
What really makes this interesting is this hybrid approach, which in terms of the initial grant and the way that it's being presented is a little different, right? So one of the interesting things was that in a South Carolina revenue ruling of 9822, they actually outlined for a question. And that question was specific: can tourist-related funds be used to fund buildings or operations for the local Chamber of Commerce? And the answer was, as a general rule, the answer is no. Okay, so in terms of getting very specific with the DMO, and how those funds are going to be used specifically for tourism, because the Chamber of Commerce is traditionally a B2B business operation, right? It works with its members and government and policy to try to drive what benefits businesses. Obviously, in a tourism related area, that's the great benefit, right? What I want to make absolutely sure and clear of is when you rewrite I'm assuming you're going to have to rewrite your grant specifically for the things you're asking for now, that we make absolutely sure it's going to cover be able to check the boxes, because once it's submitted, we don't want to have it kicked back.
Mhm.
Right. So I think in terms of perhaps getting more clarity in that, it might be beneficial. But all in all, I would say what you're trying to do and achieve here is really of great benefit for us.
Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, and I don't have the page and section to cite, but there is a determination that allows you to fund the development of a website for a DMO. Well,
It does. I think that
forgive me.
what needs to be very clear, particularly with this setup, which you are, like you said, a hybrid model, you have to, we would need to ensure that whatever funds from ATAX that are being used are allocated for the benefit of tourism. And I think with the chamber serving as that dual role with local businesses, and I think, you know, just thinking about the two different websites, I mean, if you're going to be using money from the ATAX funds for the website development, we would want to make sure that that is what's impacting tourism or, you know, current tourists, and not your local, you know, your membership or your chamber work per se.
Certainly.
Do
So-
we have any rules and regulations for the other people that are getting these grants? How are they showing that that money is going towards the efforts?
So that's
That's
part of
that
the
way.
application process, that we have to spell that out. That's why they come and make a presentation and
Mhm.
answer those questions. And one of the things that we'll talk about in your last item of new business is some changes that we're recommending for this process is a mid-year and final report on those expenditures that they can, those who receive those funds report
Yeah.
back to the city so that we can confirm, verify what those funds have been used for.
So it's just a checks and balances
right.
at this point,
Mhm.
and that's not in play yet.
No,
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was my understanding that the grant was more flexible in its needs, the grant, I guess, opposed to the 30% ATAX.
well, both the 30% and the other, where the $50,000 for grants come from, are required to be used for tourism related expenditures. And that's that list that's included in state.
I
law.
would have been more specific in my presentation had I
Right.
honed in on it.
And Desiree, we only have $50,000 to work with, right? In terms of special projects and grants for this year, correct?
Well, so currently that is what it's in the budget, $50,000. That could change. And if this committee comes and has a request for something that you all think would be very important and smart for the city to support, you can still make a recommendation to city council for that to be funded, even if it exceeds the $50,000 in the budget. As we were talking about earlier, usually at the end of the year, we exceed our budgeted revenues.
Right.
So that would provide some type of flexibility to the city to fund in excess of the $50,000 that are budgeted. And that's something that this committee may want to consider for the next budget process. If you want to increase that number that you have available for sponsorships and programs from $50,000 just being the plug number that we've used in the past. It's not, it could change. It could be
Right.
more, it could be less, depending on the need.
And as this revenue has increased, perhaps we should look at a percentage of total.
That's right.
months.
And just so I'm clear, this is the last of the 50,000 grants. This is the last 10,000 that we have, or are there other grants that will be coming
So
available?
we've, you can see in your financial statements, the grants for FY 22 are at $45,000. But we start a new budget year in a couple weeks, July 1st. So you have a new bucket of $50,000 to assign for.
So we have 5 left to give through June, and then we start again.
That's right.
Okay. And so we're looking here for after June to grant this 10, or
Yeah.
are they asking for 5 now and 5 in a month?
That's up to you all. There's no issue with you making a recommendation to council to consider for FY 23 expenditure, which would just be a week after our current year ends.
Or you could do it for FY 22.
Correct.
and, Maintain the 50,000 for FY.
We can specifically spend $5,000 on social media, only looking at targeting visitors, because that's all our social media is going to be doing. To make that clear. And if I need to modify the application, I can do it by the end of the business day if you need me to.
Yeah, I think that that would be helpful when
Yeah.
this will go to full council, Ways and Means and full council, so you have time
Right.
to update that application.
Without having to come back and present, because this is the second time we've presented. The first time we were specifically on the website, just on the visitors portion of the website. But that's been, 2 months since then. So we've actually secured funding for that. So just by going forward, but for our social media, this would be specific for social media for visitor focused engagement. Again, focusing on the experiential marketing.
So you're going to redo your application.
If that's what
on
I
that
need to do,
specific-
then
on
yes.
that specific
Yes.
social media aspect.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask, just for my education, what does it cost to belong to the Chamber of Commerce? Is there different levels or?
Mhm. Yep, you can come in at $250 for entry level membership. And then our normal membership goes up to $1,000. These are annual fees and dues. And then you could also become a founding member for the next month, which is a $2,500. And that's to be more of a sponsorship level to really show that you want to be a founding member and believe in what we're doing.
250, 500, 1,000, and 2,500
Got
from the treasurer.
it.
There you go.
Layman's terms, and I'm marketing and I'm flowery about what I say.
So I'm curious, as the 120,000 a year, that's for your total marketing, or we talking social media? No,
That would be total mark.
Total
That's a
marketing.
conservative number for our first year in projected marketing funds, including social media.
okay, okay.
Yeah, social media is probably looking somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 a month at this point. And that's an entry level. As everybody knows, I can grow.
Mhm.
And that's going to come out of your general budget, or are you going to be coming back looking for more money?
We're
That's
in
another
the,
story for another day.
Sure.
Okay.
we have,
That-
Baby
we have
steps.
gotten a lot of support. We've gotten a lot of support. So we're confident that we can secure.
To answer your question, honestly, non-tourism related expenses will come out of the membership fees.
Of course.
So tourism related expenses, we are hoping for future support from this committee and city council. Absolutely.
Desiree, does it make sense to, when we have the application, the revised application, to run it by Turk to ask them for an opinion on that?
Yeah, we can certainly.
I mean, that, because it sounds like there's some question about whether members here think it would be an appropriate expense or not. And I'm just asking whether that makes any sense or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the state law where it talks about what's eligible, tourism related expenditures, it talks about the advertisement and promotion of tourism in the area. And I think if the chamber can make a direct link between their social media activity and how that is generating tourism through the generation of publicity, then that would be an eligible expense. I don't think the Department of Revenue ruling 98 talks about, I think it's more about operational, like
It's building
buildings and operations, which I don't think it's what's being requested would apply under that category. This is a very specific, activity, tourism promotion activity through social media. But we can certainly submit that application and see whether or not, in the past, they've been somewhat apprehensive at giving an opinion on specific requests, but we could certainly try.
Mr. Chairman.
But you're saying it qualifies anyway, you think?
I believe, based on the reading of the law and what the request is for, I think it would fit under the tourism related expenditure of the promotion of tourism.
Mr. Chairman.
Jess?
I also agree that it would probably easily pass the sniff test in that area. I also think in terms of website development overall, if you went to, say, Charleston Chamber of Commerce or to the Aspen, whatever, and got basic website stats in terms of where the traffic is coming from, et cetera, to understand what that allocation is. Because once you have an allocation percentage, you could do back-end development, maintenance, and all those things as a percent, but we just have to have some kind of guidance to be able to make sure, because the last thing we want it to not have happen is have to end up paying for it in other ways. if
Right.
Something happens. So
Yeah,
that's
That makes sense.
it.
Well, and we're anxious to get going with our website and start getting some of that data
Yeah.
feedback in to understand the dynamics of
Yeah.
what it is. The website, 90% of the website at this point is being developed around attracting tourism to the Isle of Palms. Trying to be as specific to what the law states, accommodations tax monies can be used for. We're not looking. We're looking to diversify some of that 10% to what do you do when you get here? Where do we eat? Well, how do we sit in it? You know, where do we get a chair for the beach? Where do we get an umbrella? You know, other things that people want to do when they're at the beach. We need to promote those. And that's just kind of the business side. Okay.
And again, it's, we have the stakeholders involved in this, we're not getting paid anything. We're volunteers. We're here because
What?
we're, sorry. I know. We're here because we have actual stake in the game. I mean, this is our business directly is affected by our tourism numbers, the tourism management. If we get overrun and all of a sudden we become way too busy, that's also going to negatively affect our business and our lives. We're both residents here on the island with families. And so, we just find ourselves as unique stakeholders in this. And we also have a really great relationship with Explore Charleston, the CVB. They've offered to help share information to help our targeting be better and really be partners in a lot of things that we're doing, because they're already harvesting a lot of that data, that we're not trying to kind of reinvent the wheel when it comes to like data harvesting. We're not trying to, hire somebody to do exactly what they've done with their, amazing budget and skill and expertise and experience that they have.
We recognize the CVB as an integral partner of the Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce at multiple levels. They're out there on a worldwide market competing for Paris, London, Brussels, Chicago, New York, you name it. They're competing with Charleston. Explore Charleston is a global level. And we understand how they benefit all of us. And then we want to enhance our little piece of the globe by creating that Isle of Palms destination. And so that's really what we're trying to do.
Sounds great.
Any other questions?
I had 1%, Sandy, you mentioned CVB and the thought occurred to me. I'm excited about the idea of spending Isle of Palms tax money for the Isle of Palms and for our valued visitors, for the environment, turtles, and on and on. It appears to me that there's a lot of overlap with CVB and the chamber. Only you're more focused on where we live and where the money comes from. But they're getting, I'm guessing somewhere around $1 million, and they've gotten a lot of money over the years. I'm trying to understand why they shouldn't be funding all of what you do. I know they're regional and they take our money and they're subsidizing others. I'd like to see our money spent on us. I'm just trying to get my mind around why they wouldn't be paying for everything that you do.
They haven't said no.
This is just Sandy Stone trying to answer your question, Doug. I know that my website has an impact, but I also know that my website is impacted by the CVB through the number of hits that come through. And we do collect information for where are our new leads coming from. I've forgotten your name.
Chaz.
Chaz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You've been in the business and you understand that that big piece of the pie is feeding the smaller pieces. It's not always something you can measure. I don't know how many Well, actually, I do know how many people came out of CVB, hit our site and left, and then we're looking at why they left. But I want to keep that feed going because it does generate new leads that we are able to convert. Maybe not the first year, the second year, or third year that they look at us. And so I don't want to dilute that necessarily by chinking away at their funding. And I think other municipalities have looked at that also for what that global value is that the CVP brings. I don't know if that helps answer.
Well, I think maybe I guess I'm coming into this very new, so I'm still learning. It just seems odd to me that we give that Isle of Palms will give another entity money, and then that entity gives it back to Isle of Palms. Why wouldn't we just go direct on a chunk of money? Not the entire, because I think the Explore Charleston is important. I just don't know why we give, let's just say $5 to Explore Charleston and then they give $3 back. Why would?
It's not technically back because they're not giving it to city council in the city. They're giving it to a private entity.
Yeah, so let me just,
Yeah.
let
I'm
me
sorry, just a
separate.
little-
You've got two issues going here. We're looking for a grant.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah,
That's all I want right now.
Yeah, and the grant,
Later, we may come back and
That's not-
revisit some of that, but,
yeah, this is a grant that
Is
would
it?
be funded by the 65% allocation of state ATAX monies that the city uses for tourism related expenditures. The 30, you're referring to the 30% that the city is required to direct to a direct marketing organization. That 30% has historically, I guess, for the past 20-25 years, has been given to the CVB.
Okay,
Because no other alternative existed. I
gotcha.
think that a different conversation will be now that the IOP Chamber of Commerce is in place. Will they be eligible to receive a portion of that 30% that the state law requires to be used for tourism advertisement? Can the city and city council distribute that money differently rather than just giving it all to the CVB? That's, I guess, a separate conversation
Gotcha.
that we'll certainly have with city council, coming up very soon. But this is just a grant for a specific program that is funded through the 65% of state ATAX dollars that the city allocates throughout the city.
Gotcha.
I understand, Desiree, I understand that we've got the 65%, this is a growth of grant, then we've got 30% that goes to CVB. Katrina had indicated once before what their goal was become the DMO, which what I understood you said at
No, not the DMO.
or ATM, part of the DMO, get some of the money, which sounded very promising. But I'm trying to get my mind around how you can go both ways. You get money from a grant and then simultaneously applying to become one of the DMO recipients. Is this
They're not
I know,
applying
I
to
know.
be a DMO recipient, so that's today. And today you have a grant for $10,000, which is what's on
Yeah.
you all for consideration today.
What I would suggest is that the chamber redo the application, give us the application, and I would propose we schedule a special meeting next week or later this week, because I'd like to deal with it within the fiscal 22. And then vote on the grant application.
Is there a way we can
just.
expedite the process so because what I'm hearing is y'all are hung up needing funds
Yeah.
to get this up and running, is that correct?
We
If
would
there's
like
Do
to
you have a splash
we would like
page?
to have a grant from the committee and council, yes.
So
The
this is
council
this is
their
a,
meeting is a week from tomorrow, is that right?
that's correct, next Tuesday.
So the objective would be to get it done before then. That,
I mean,
Or to vote on it today.
or if the committee wants to vote on it today, that's fine. although we're voting on something that we. don't
We're
have
not
an
sure
application
exactly
for.
what it is. Yeah, okay.
Can,
So I'm just
can we
trying to-
have a copy of the
just trying
application? We'll
to-
scratch through it and we'll initial
right
everything.
thing.
You have the president and another board member here who will initial and change all of the lines needed. And if we need a lawyer.
Should be notary.
That's not so loud.
I mean, that's an option is to approve an amount, $10,000 contingent on receiving an updated application.
Absolutely.
That application will be distributed to city council, so they will consider it. Ultimately, it's their call to approve or not approve. So y'all can make a recommendation based on the information provided today, contingent on an updated application being distributed and presented to council.
So moved.
Could we also start the back end of things now instead of fiscal 22, 23 and kind of the audit process with that as well? Say we'd like to see the number of click-throughs or however we can manage a return on investment.
Well,
And
yeah,
that starts with them, and then we can do that with put that on the other grants as
You could-
well,
you
moving
could
forward.
certainly make part of your, make it part of your recommendation that a mid-year or final report is provided to the committee on how the $10,000 were spent for social media development.
I think that would be fine. Maybe.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have just one other question, just so I'm clear, and I'm so sorry. As I understood it, there's only 5,000 left for this. Do we need to have another vote on an extra 5?
No, you can make a recommendation for $10,000, even though there's only $5,000 budgeted in FY 22, which ends June 30th.
Okay.
Because our revenues for state aid tax have far exceeded our budgeted revenues for fiscal year 22, city council can consider approving, an additional 5,000. We'll probably be under budget in some of these line items that we just discussed, so those come from the same pot of money
Okay.
essentially, so we can make that recommendation. That could be part of the recommendation.
Any other discussion?
Okay, my comments are, I appreciate the newly formed Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce's efforts to provide us, the residents and the tourists, with a viable alternative that sounds very exciting. And I would encourage you to make progress so that one day you can be considered as our DMO or a DMO. It's about $1 million a year that clearly, in my mind, could be better spent than the way it's spent now, where out of the million, about 400,000 is spent on the Isle of Palms, about 600,000 goes to other communities. So I would be excited to see our money being spent for us and for our valued tourists and our visitors compared to the current situation. I can't vote to give the new chamber money regrettably for the following reasons, among others. The way I read the law and the process is this would be a new venture and we're not allowed to provide seed money for a new venture. If we do this, then we're setting a dangerous process or a dangerous precedent for anybody that came in, could get the money, try it for a year, just walk away. We've seen that happen before on the Isle of Palms with grant money that was given. I could give you some specifics. It would be the inconsistent with the purpose of grants. The second point is that if we make a mistake, what happens is if it's not a $10,000 mistake, it's $20,000 mistake because we give the money. Then if Turk says we misspent the money, then they take it away from us again. Plus it exposes us to a lot of scrutiny that could be very dangerous, involving not just $10,000 or $20,000, but a lot more. So I would like to see a formal process in place before I could vote for it. I just can't. I don't want to use the word loosey-goosey. I don't mean that in a derogatory term, but without knowing exactly what I'm dealing with, I just can't in good conscience vote to spend the taxpayers' money that way. I think it's a great idea. I want to encourage you. I'm excited about it. And the concept, but given where we are and what I see is the law, it looks like we're providing seed money, and I think it's almost one of these things where you have to prove yourself and then come back and ask for the money rather than do it up front. So that's gonna be my reason why I'm going regrettably vote the other way. I'm excited, Blue Island, you've got the top people in the southeast, if not in the country, that are involved and very respectful of this, and that has nothing to do with you. I'm still hung up on, you mentioned it, and I might tip my hat to you because I was gonna mention the same thing. You go back to the revenue rulings from 1998. Turk now has control of this, and you can read what their opinions have been. I just see it as it's a dangerous precedent. If we get caught, quite frankly, they don't usually catch these things because they're composed of a series of volunteers that don't do very detailed audits. But if we did, it could cause us a lot of anguish. So I would like to see something new before we voted. I think Ray mentioned tabling it, perhaps tabling, but I saw on the other hand that that could cause the chamber some problems. I thought about tabling. It might be fair to have our 7th member involved before we voted. It might not be fair to the new members to decide right now, but it might not be fair to, and the same thing to the chamber. So I don't know. I'd want to hear from the new members of whether they would want to vote today. I can vote today. Or do we want to think about it some more? Do we want to give these guys a chance to redo the application so that we can feel more assured that we won't be criticized by Turk? Or I'd like to hear what everybody thinks.
Well, again, I think where my concern is if it's not lawful, then we can't do it. However, if it's going towards the social media, let's just say, and if they can show us the bill of sale for social media, then that keeps us legal, correct?
The law requires that the expenditure be used to attract and provide for tourists
Okay.
and the promotion of tourism on the island. I think that that's up to them to make their case whether or not what they're requesting monies for, which is social media development for tourism, fits
Okay.
that definition or not.
So do y'all have a splash page already? Is it anything up and running at all? Or
No.
on it? Is there
We have
anything-
we only have our handles. And we're
Okay.
meeting again on Thursday with our social media company. But again, it's a question, the chicken or the, was there the chicken or the egg? And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
we're just trying to get the funding so we can give it to them. But I have a contract. I could show you the email with the contract if that would be beneficial with the
And
application.
how much did you get from the CVB?
They have not paid us anything directly. They don't pay anything to us directly. They've just funded our website by paying Blue Island directly.
Okay, but the website is not active,
No,
not even a splash page.
not even a splash page. They offered to develop a splash page for us, but at the time they offered to do it for $1,000, which was
We
Hard.
didn't have any money.
yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So I made my own splash page. You should check it out. It's great.
Yeah.
So bad. But yeah, so we haven't, we
And so
have,
anything up on social media, Instagram, even a coming soon?
yes, we have all that. The coming
Okay.
soon's out there
Okay.
with handles, but we haven't shared across any type of network, or I haven't invited my friend and my mom, that sort of thing until we actually have our images, we have our things in our back burner to start daily posting. I just think, and this is just from my own marketing experience, that it's bad to put up a subpar social media site to start. You just put the coming soon and wait till you really can load your gun and go for it.
Mhm.
And that way there's never any kind of gaps when people are looking through, what happened there.
And what's the timeline for the, say, an Instagram account?
We
Or-
have one, like I said, it's created. It's just as soon as I sign this contract that I have ready to execute, then they're going to begin work.
Okay, and you can pay them on a monthly basis?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a retainer. I think it's $1,200 a month. Well, and it depends on which level we go in. It ranges from $800 to $1,500, I think, a month, depending on what
Or
we chose.
more, Depending
Well,
upon
right.
how much interaction, how many photographs, interviews.
I mean, you could spend
conversations.
$10,000 a month if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
that's the budget that they suggested to begin with.
And I think that's a very fair budget. That's, based on what we spend. on our
And
businesses.
It's our intention to measure what they're doing for the expenditure we're making, whether it's your money or somebody else's money, members' money. We want to know what we're getting for that money. So we will have an open book and be able to, as we get data, pass it through at whatever level you want to pay. See us.
Katrina, I had one more question. To follow up on yours about CVB. I understood they paid so far about $25,000 on your behalf. They didn't pay you directly. They paid some $25,000 to help you get going with seed money, which I think would indicate that there's considerable confidence that you'll do a good job. That's to help you with startup. Is that right?
So they've paid for the beginning portion of our website development, which, well, and when I say website development, I'm really mean our whole like branding package, which was our branding was the first phase and our website's the second phase. We've completed branding, I think officially last Friday. Because we chose they said we cannot do anything with your website except for technical stuff, which you don't understand is what they told me. Until we have your logo solidified. They solidified that last week. Blue Ion has paid for that portion of the contract directly to them. I really don't know the exact amount that they have paid so far, again, because it's not coming into our possession.
Okay.
We're not being billed, nor are we being
Oh.
asked for.
I understood that. I was trying to understand how much they had paid or were willing to pay. Was there a limit? Can you go, you've got some exigent circumstances that I understand and appreciate. Have you gone to them? Are they willing to do any more than what they've done?
Have they agreed to do more than what they've done?
Well, they paid, I think somewhere I saw $25,000, but I didn't know whether that was a cap.
No, they have not capped us.
Okay.
Again, they've been incredibly supportive of us. We have a really great relationship. You know, I sit down with Helen often and we just talk about how we can collaborate on things. And they are really supportive of Isle of Palms and Isle of Palms creating its own brand. That's why they've been helping us. So.
And I think, I know this is, the majority of you all are new, but the former ATAX committee spent about a year looking into how to best spend tourism dollars for the city. The ATAX task force that recently just finished their work last month also spent several months evaluating our current structure. And I don't want to get into a different conversation about who should manage 30%, but a constant theme that we kept hearing from those both groups was that we wanted to have more an IOP local focus. We understand the value that Isle of Palms has to the region and in the Charleston's marketing efforts. And I think we certainly benefit and have benefited. If you look at our revenues for tourism revenues throughout years, it just continues to grow. So we have benefited significantly from that approach, but there's always been a conversation about we want to do something more focused on the local experience, our local businesses, what tourists do here locally at Isle of Palms, developing an IOP specific brand. This is that opportunity through a local group that's forming to fill, I guess, maybe that void that folks have identified as being needing some work. So I think that this is how you can see that is the social media component would be focused on Isle of Palms to attract tourism here on Isle of Palms and provide for those tourists that do come to Isle of Palms, rather than kind of being part of the regional tourism effort.
And maybe to ease some of the concerns, their concerns is, are there other funds coming in? Because if we dole out the 10 and your social media is going to be 120,000 a year, that you're asking.
No, our social media
Or
will
your
not be 120.
PR marketing?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So where are the other funds coming from?
membership.
Memberships. Okay.
Yeah, we only have memberships for funding right now.
Okay.
Any other discussion, Barb?
Just to make it clear in my mind. So this website development is the chamber's website for the chamber plus the IOP whatever we are website, right?
It's really going to be visitor focused. So it's really going to be more of a forward facing visitors.
The chamber, you're not having a separate one for the chamber.
Not right now. No.
So is the chamber donating financially to this website?
No.
Okay, so the visitor
Only our
part of the
time.
website- Yeah, okay. But so the visitor part of the website is funding the businesses Chamber of Commerce part of
Visitors.
the website.
Right. It's going to be more of a back end. So I encourage you to look at Defy Aspen or gosh, Aspen Defy Ordinary. That's their campaign. If you check out that website, they are a hybrid Chamber of Commerce and DMO, and they do it really well and how they illustrate their chamber kind of from this like members portion of the website where really it's forward facing imagery of Aspen and really attracting future guests to come and patronize businesses and stay overnight and have a great time.
Any
Since they're
further
talking-
discussion?
Your meeting's the 28th,
Yes, you should come.
Where?
Palms Exchange Club at noon.
noon on the 28th.
Yeah, Chief Cornette's going to be speaking. We're going to be giving a lot of great updates.
Chaz?
That's all right. Just a technical question
Sure.
because I'm new. If we give a grant in a fiscal year, does the entity have to spend that money in that fiscal year for a one-to-one relationship, or can it bleed to another fiscal year?
It can.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a 2-year. There's a,
City has-
the city has a 2-year sort of deadline to
Right.
spend tourism dollars.
Great, thank you.
But yeah,
I mean, I think if they need some money to get it up and running for the social media part, I don't see any problem with giving them that grant as long as we can see and show the citizens that it was indeed spent on the social media aspect of it. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, but we can't right now.
Well, we have a motion on the table in a second.
that's correct.
Oh. So what does that?
The motion was to approve the grant amount contingent on receiving an updated application that specifies the social media component. And to include providing a final report on the expenditure of those funds.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Any further discussion? Nicole, would you do a roll call
Absolutely.
on the motion?
Ms. Bergman,
Yes,
Mr. Akers,
Aye.
Mr. Treslow,
No.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
and Ms. Lorenz.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys
Thank
very much
you.
for your help.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion of the proposed fiscal 23 budget from Charleston Visitors Bureau for the city's 30% state ATAX funds for tourism promotion and advertisement. Lori, I'm going to leave the
28th, Exchange Club.
do we get fed?
Yeah, thank y'all.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laurie Smith. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Explore Charleston, which is a fancy word for whatever needs to happen today is what my job is. Helen is out of town. I know she regretted not being able to be with you today. She is with our partners with Breeze Airways. And so she just specifically wanted me to express that she regretted not being able to be here today. She sent me instead, and I also have with me Chris Campbell, who is our communications director. So I'll tell you, our committee members who've been involved in this conversation for some time now have seen lots and lots of pretty pictures and lots of presentations from us. I have absolutely no pretty pictures today. I have a bunch of numbers for you all to look at. So that's what I'm going to be talking from today. And I'm going to be giving you as much or as little information as you want. And I will do my best as an operations person to answer your marketing questions. But thank you for having us here today. I want to let you know that over the last gosh, several months. We've heard you. There's been a recurring message that the city is looking to hear more from us as it relates to being more transparent, digging a little deeper into our budget, into our reporting. You're looking for responsiveness from us, and you're looking to see Isle of Palms specific marketing. And the budget that we have provided to you, I'm hoping will address those very three specific things. And that is what we are working to do is to let you know that we've heard you and to do more of what you're looking for from us, in addition to promoting the region, which is our mission. So in your packet of materials, most of the end of the packet is related to what we'll be discussing today. Specifically, if you can look at the larger sheets of paper, the very last page, Debbie actually took my very ugly work and turned it into something much easier to review. So I thought it would help to start with the materials that she consolidated for us. And it begins at the top with Charleston Area CVB Explore Charleston's summary of fiscal year 23 budget submitted to the Isle of Palms. So what we've done in conversation with several committee members, with Mayor Pounds, and also with Councilmember Streetman, who is our representative, who's the City of Isle of Palms representative to our Board of Governors, is look at how we might better make a measurable or quantifiable approach to our efforts on your behalf. I will tell you that we have anticipated, Mr. Trueslow, you were looking for a number based on what we're anticipating by the end of the fiscal year. We're thinking next fiscal year will be $875,000. That's clearly just a budget based on performance. What we've seen, this quarter hasn't ended yet. We still got another week to go or so, Debbie, before we know exactly how we did this quarter, but we're estimating $875,000 in this budget. So that's what we're looking to show you through this process. So column 1 is showing you our out-of-pocket cost for various programs. I'm just going to overview the quantifiable piece here. Column 2 is showing you your share of expense, and we're basing everything on lodging and lodging inventory in the community. So rooms and short-term rentals that you have in the city of Isle of Palms versus the county and the area that we represent as a whole. So Isle of Palms has 5.5% of the overall rooms inventory in our community. Isle of Palms has 8% of the overall full service inventory. So that's meaning a hotel where a group could check in and be serviced through catering. They could have meetings in that space. You all have 8% of that overall inventory in our community. The fourth column is looking at your share of inventory based on luxury group service properties. So think of many of the hotels or the properties at Wild Dunes in comparison with, say, a Hotel Bennett or a Kiowa Resort. You all have 24% of the luxury rooms in the community.
And Lori, that also includes homes.
Yes.
That are considered luxury.
Yes. Thank you for that correction. The fifth column is looking at the Isle of Palms share of lodging based on the islands, because there are several programs and promotions that we do that promote the islands of the Charleston area. So we wanted to look at your share of the island communities as well, which is 34%. And then the sixth column is looking at what we're doing and what we're proposing to do based on the input that we've received. 100% for Isle of Palms. And I'll just say, Mr. Trueslow, I appreciated where you were coming from in your question to Trina about why couldn't the CVB help them with some of these their programs. I absolutely think we could, and it would fit under this column right here. So I very much look forward to our working together to find programs that that they're looking to target that makes sense from a visitor perspective to put in these columns as we move forward. So that being said, we're proposing $404,000 on the community allocation in column 2, a total of $6,700 based on full service efforts and group business, a total of $43,000 on that luxury business, $198,000 on the islands communities, and another $319,000 on Isle of Palms specific. Now, the categories that we've broken down include marketing and advertising, which is mostly digital. It's website, it's SEO, it is social media. The negotiated ad buys are mostly print with some digital components. The group sales are all about getting group business here. It's trade show heavy, and you'll see that in the detail. Market research, those of you who are new to Explore Charleston, everything we do is based on research. So we have a sense of who's reading what and who's interested in traveling where. And so research is a very important component to anything that we do in marketing. And then we have a general category that is destination services and promotion, and that's where we're promoting the community at large. So now, at your pleasure, I'll be happy to go through, if we want to turn to the front page of this part of the packet. If you'd like me to go through this line by line, I'm happy to do that. I want to serve at your pleasure. I'm happy to answer questions that you may have so far about the formulas that we used, how we got here.
I do. I have a quick question. Can you define your island communities? Which islands are we talking about?
So it's Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island, Folly Beach, and Seabrook and Kiowa, 5 island communities.
And can you break down how much, or are we privy to that information on how much they are giving their dollar wise to you?
I'm sure I'm happy to share that. I don't have it with me today, but I'm happy to share that.
I'm just wondering what our share is based compared to the others. If we're giving what, 800, 600,000?
You are in line with Kiowa. Kiowa and Isle of Palms are very closely aligned. Seabrook has significantly fewer, and Sullivan's have significantly fewer properties that they put out into the market in this way. So they're significantly lower. We do receive 30%. It's that same 30% rule. Folly Beach is another conversation.
Okay.
Um,
So between Isle of Palms and Kiowa, we're giving 68% of the revenue to the islands communities.
Correct. To that particular campaign. Yes, ma'am.
And then you're saying Folly is another story, so we can deduce that maybe that's a very low percentage.
Folly has a, I think some of you have heard from our friends at Folly. Folly's an important piece of the community mix.
Okay. And between Sullivan's and Seabrook, what are their?
They're significantly lower, as I mentioned, because they have significantly fewer properties.
Mhm. Well, I guess my question is there's still 30% out there, or 32%. I would say Folly would just guess 2%.
Oh,
you have another.
So that percentage is not based on revenue. The percentage is based on rooms that you have available for inventory. So it's based on hotel rooms or short-term rentals. That percentage is not based on revenue to the CVB.
So what the 34%, and I'm looking at column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, IOP share based on island inventory. The 34%, is that saying how much marketing dollars of CVB are going to marketing the island?
So the inventory in the Island Beach communities, Isle of Palms has 1,004 STR units plus 424 hotel rooms. So you have 1,428 total lodging units.
Okay.
The islands overall, those 5 islands have 4,172 units. That's how we get to 34% of the inventory of units in those 5 islands.
Yeah, it's based on the number of rooms that are then, or units.
Okay, so we're 34% just as far as rooms, not the marketing dollars that are
No.
spent marketing the island community.
No. I'm sorry for the confusion. And that's why I
No,
wanted to
that's-
stop and answer questions.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look on the 3rd page, and I'm sorry, I wish this was, maybe I should have had a pretty presentation. But page 3 of the packet, if you look at the italicized information at the bottom of that page, it gives you the breakdown of how we got to those percentage numbers. But it's all based on share of rooms located here in this community versus, say, in a larger pool in the community or the islands.
So Sullivan's, I think to your question, that number would be very, very low because they don't have any hotels and they prohibit short-term rentals with the exception of about 40 or 42 that have been grandfathered in. So
Gotcha.
those units are the only ones that generate accommodation tax revenue for the town.
Okay, I
Right.
guess maybe where I was thinking that was saying is what percentage of your efforts are concentrated on Isle of Palms versus Sullivan's versus Kiowa?
Oh, no.
versus Seacrest?
So we were looking, again, based on lots and lots of conversations, to find a way to give you all something measurable. How do we get this number out of nowhere and say that? So rooms is what we kept coming back to. And that was a standard across all of the communities. So this is looking at your share of the rooms. And then what we've done is take that percentage and multiplied it back out by your share of the cost of the program. So that's how we're getting from
Okay.
the percentage to the dollar figure.
So if I'm pretend that the IOP share islands of inventory of 34.23, it's all print advertising. You've got all 5 islands. We're doing a double spread, Southern Living, and that's it. So our total percent is, coming to, 198,387 at 34.23%, right? So you guys are spending, 198 at 30.3423. You guys are spending around $578,000. Okay. So is that really the total cost of the campaign, or did you guys have to suck out Follies percent of what they should be spending, even though they're not, and taking that from a generalized budget? Or are we getting a weighted average of Folly not participating?
Well, we are assigning these. First of all, I hate to say this, but you're our guinea pig.
Okay.
So we've been challenged to think differently, which is not a bad thing. And so what we end up with here is what we are working on in other communities. We're down the path with Kiowa. We're talking with Folly about what our relationship with Folly looks like moving forward. I can't answer your question about a weighted average, but I can tell you that we're applying this same formula against every other islands community. I don't have Folly's number off the top of my head, but we would expect that they would kick in X amount.
Okay, so you're assuming they're paying for it. It's not that you had to subtract dollars out and cover it because they're not participating.
Right.
That was my only question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about how the spreadsheet is set up? I know that it's complicated and we're trying to be measurable, but I also understand that we're talking about a lot of dynamics here in several communities. Would you like me to dive into the details of the budget, or I'm happy to do that?
Want to make sure I'm clear. and
Sure.
I think a lot of the concern with the citizens is the amount of money we're spending versus the amount of advertising and efforts that are going into it. And I personally haven't done a deep dive into this, I think, but it would help if we could hear a little bit about more of the efforts that's happening with our dollars versus, say, a Sullivan's or a Kiowa.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is that fair? Is
Well,
that-
then how about let's start with the items that are Isle of Palms specific.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's turn to the first page in this part of the packet. And we're going to be looking at the sixth numerical column. Yes, the second to the last column. All right, so everything that's in this column is allocated 100% to Isle of Palms, and it's been based on feedback from months and months of discussion with various members of the committee and various members of council and various business owners in the community, what they would like to see. So we're in development now of an Isle of Palms specific site. And what was asked of us was we're a membership-based organization. I should back up and say that for those who are new. We're a membership-based organization. In the past, you had to be a member to be on our website. So that meant that your business is out here at Isle of Palms, unless you are a member of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, you were not on our website. We were asked to revisit that, and we have changed that. So we have an Isle of Palms specific site. It's actually a micro site. And again, I'm not a marketing person, so if I get my terminology messed up, Chaz, please feel free to correct me, but it is a micro site of the larger Explore Charleston site. However, you can get there directly through typing in Isle of Palms. So
It's up now.
it's in, yes, ma'am, it is up now. What we have done is working through the city, we have reached out to businesses on the island to get their information so we can upload their information. We haven't had a lot of response on that, but it is something that is in our budget for next year and something that we'll be working on to include any business that's on Isle of Palms that would like to be on the website there.
So can I just ask a quick question before you, and I'm so sorry to belabor this point, but so if we're going through a click through to an Isle of Palms specific site, we just had a presentation on an Isle of Palms specific website, right? So will it click through straight to the chamber's site? Or are we gonna have?
It's a great question. And I think that what we know is that we are going to work together very closely to share information. So this part of our site is going to be non-member specific. So any business that wants to be, if the grocery store wants to be on this site, they will be on this site. And how that plays off of the site that the chamber is creating, we have the same web developer, Blue Ion, is who we work with as well. So we'll be looking for ways to play off of one another. Absolutely. And to be smart about that. And that was something that was very specifically requested of us. So that's one of the first things that we went to work on. Let's see. You also have a presence on our beaches site, and it is specific to Isle of Palms. We have a cost there of $31,000. Yes,
Can I
sir.
ask a question? In fiscal 22, the budget for Explore Charleston had $157,000 in it for website development. As well as other programs, it says. Where is that money? Meaning, if that's been spent, where's the product? Because now it looks like we're spending money for the same thing again.
I'm sorry, where are we? Am I looking at another report?
Well, the fiscal 22 CDB budget.
Right. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know what you were looking at.
$157,000 for website development. And so now we've got fiscal 23 budget, and we've got money, 37,000 and 31,000 for website development.
Right. We're going to continue to have, think of a website. And this is me and my little operations brain. So I think of the website as we bought a first home, and then we had a baby and we built onto that home. And then we had another baby and we built on that home. And then eventually we're taking care of our parents. And so we build, the websites are going to continue to develop. We're going to continue to spend money in those arenas.
But, we've just heard a presentation from the chamber that they're looking at developing a website for $25,000 or $35,000, which
It's $52,000 I don't know that that wasn't certified, but it's $52,000.
Okay, so you're saying there's no redundance here with this year, we're paying you $157,000 and now for the new year, there's another $68,000.
Yes, sir. I'm saying that we will continue to have to put money into our websites for maintenance and, yes, sir.
It's like, it's an ongoing expenditure for maintaining that website.
Correct. And keeping it current and feeding it more information and paying Blue Ion to keep it up. Yes, sir.
And that, I think that's typical. I'm not sure of the cost, but it is typical to have ongoing
Well,
expenses.
I'd like to see what the product is for the $157,000. I went to this website on your fiscal 23 budget. I went on there at, noontime today. And there's no other businesses that are not members on it. I mean, it's very, very limited in what it has with relative to Isle of Palms, unless you're a member, whether you're Wild Dunes or Island Realty or Beachside, or those member companies are on there, but there's nothing on any company that's not a member as of 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't. If I indicated that we were already doing that, I apologize. I felt like what I had said is that we were working on gathering those businesses and,
Okay, but does this website exist?
yes, sir.
I went to this
Yes, sir.
website and you can get there, but it's no different than it was a year ago.
You're talking about the CVB website, not
The one that's right here in the budget, yeah, charlestoncvb.com/beaches/Isle of Palms.
So what I think you're saying is you want to see, I think the city wants to see what the end result of the 132,000 expenditure for FY22,
157.
157 that was approved by council as part of that budget.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time approving a budget with, I just like to see what we received for our 157,000.
Okay, I didn't realize that's why we were here today. I'm happy for us to pull that together and submit to the, sure, I understand.
Like an obvious question to me.
I hear you. And I know when we'll be required to report here to the city very soon. So we will be held accountable to reporting that information to you. I just didn't realize we were talking about that today. So I'm sorry I didn't come prepared to speak to that today.
It's not. So just so I understand, the 37 and the 31, those are website maintenance costs, not website development costs.
Correct.
And Lori, are you including here the cost to Blue Ion of your efforts at helping the chamber's website?
No, we've pulled it from a completely separate from our business partnership fund. We're paying for that. I argued differently, just for the record. But no, Helen insisted that we pay for that outside of Isle of Palms funds.
So you're not using any ATAX revenues from the city to fund that,
No, ma'am.
which is why it's not in this budget.
Correct.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
It's relative, but not exactly. I've been looking through your website too, and I didn't know about this membership thing because I wondered why certain things weren't mentioned. Last night I was looking at dining and nightlife in Charleston, SC in the Isle of Palms, and the two things listed are Salty Dog in Seabrook and Mrs. Rose's Fine Food and Cocktails that aren't Isle of Palms.
That makes no sense.
So, and what I'm asking is like if Islander 71 or Acme would want to get onto this page, they would have to pay something.
In the past, yes, ma'am, we would require that they be a business,
And
but
how much would that cost them?
well, it depends on the type of business, but anywhere from $400 to some of our hotels pay $7,000.
Okay, so
So-
let's say 400 annually.
Yes, ma'am.
See, that seems redundant. I mean, we've got this ATAX money that the city, it's not my money. It's not coming out of my pocket. It's coming out of the pocket of the tourists who stayed here. I mean, seem to take it too personally. By law, we have to give it to you. You all have been incredibly successful over the years, and the amount's gone up and up and up, which means we've been successful too, putting heads in beds. So I don't find you, the evil stepsister in this, but I was concerned. I really, really looked at trying to find Isle of Ponds in anything. And I wasn't even really thinking about Folly or anyone else. I just think we're underrepresented.
Mhm.
And I'm new to this first meeting,
Sure.
so you are changing that. But I think the businesses should all be in there. That's the whole point of you all.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for saying that. And I will look in, Miss Rose I live West Ashley. She's just around the corner from my house. So I could look at that and tell it was wrong. So I will go and check that myself. But based on comments that we have heard in these meetings, you now do not have to be a member to be on our site. So we have been working through the city staff to get that information out to businesses to let them know to contact us, and they will be put on the site for no charge.
But is that
So-
gonna be and I think it's, some of the questions have been, is that are they gonna be highlighted in your main site or a separate?
You have a
site?
micro, it's called a micro site specific to Isle of Palms.
So, but okay, that's all well and good. But now dining and nightlife in Charleston, South Carolina, in the Isle of Ponds, they won't be there.
Right. For there, they would have to be, you'd have to be a member to show up on our main site. Yes, ma'am.
The whole world uses websites, and as soon as you make them complicated, people click off, which I hate the city's website. Nothing personal, for years. But to my mind, I found this pretty easily. And then I'm coming to Isle of Ponds and there's no Isle of Ponds stuff there. Unless there's a link on this thing that says, if you want Isle of Ponds, go somewhere else.
Well, and there's certainly, that's certainly, I don't want to sound like we're, there's a line in the sand. So that could be up for debate. I mean, I would perhaps defer to somebody maybe more in the marketing realm, but perhaps it could be that we put a link there that would link over to the microsite, which would show Isle of Palms
Are you
businesses.
developing any other microsites? Anyone else want to?
After we do this one, we'll be doing them for all of our local governments. Yes, ma'am.
I have a
Thank you.
question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm gonna pull it up just a little bit. So again, very new to here. And looking again at the revenue ruling. It looks, there was one thing that basically came up, and that is, does the county or municipalities advisory committee oversee the expenditure of revenues of the promotion fund? And the answer is no. Okay. So, the good news here is it seems like in the spirit of partnership and some additional transparency that you're now putting together these line item budgets, right? I don't think, with none of us being experts in marketing, tourism, and everything across the board, to be able to go and line item the pros and cons of every print placement, every link, et cetera, we would be here for a long period of time. I really like the model that you guys have done in terms of looking at the allocation of the marketing spend based on beds, the occupancy, et cetera, et cetera. My question at a very high level is when I look at this, roughly half of the dollars are non-IOP specific and roughly half are. Okay, seems to be almost like almost close to a 1-to-1 ratio when I look at that. So could you walk us through that formula, and does that formula apply to other local municipalities in terms of their weighting between, what is given to the whole versus what is given to the part?
Right. That's a great question. And I will look to see how, when all the dust settles after all this, what the common thread is going to be. What I can tell you is that if we get through this exercise with you all and with Kiowa, and Kiowa has accepted it, but this is where it started. So this is where we've got to progress. We'll be taking this to every community. So, the share of Isle of Palms in this particular instance, where Isle of Palms has 5.5% of the overall lodging in the community, is going to be different for the city of Charleston and for North Charleston. So their share is going to go up. Not having run these exercises for every government just yet, I anticipate that it won't be the same. And I anticipate that probably that it may be higher for some of our smaller communities. But I don't know the answer to that yet. What I can tell you is that we're going to take the assessment again, if we can get approval on the process and the thinking behind it, that we're going to perform the same assessment for every community. I hope that is helpful. It's going to look different for every community. I can tell you that. In Mount Pleasant, we run a visitor center in Mount Pleasant. That's, so it's going to look different for every community.
Sure, sure. And I know you have regional expenses that must be supported regardless of a ranked weighting, et cetera. At bare minimum, I would hope at least to see a 50-50 split of local to overall.
Okay.
And then just quickly, just maybe you can answer this and maybe you can't. Do just off the top of your head, the percent of people who come to Charleston, what percentage of them end up coming over here for the day?
Oh gosh, perhaps I should know that. We have 7 million visitors to the community.
Any rough idea?
I probably should know that, but I don't off
Okay.
the top of my head.
It's a tough thing to answer without really,
Sure.
trying to do one of those. What clouds it also when you're measuring traffic is day trippers. So it makes it even more complicated. Part of what we're bringing to the table from a market research standpoint is a brand new software package where we will be able to track the movement of, you may be familiar with some of these in your experience. It's called Datafy. You'll find that in the market research section on page 3, I believe. That is one of our big steps to answer that question for a lot of our municipalities.
Understood.
Other islands look at the same thing as we're looking at tourism management conversations.
Right.
It would help if we know how many flew in, how many drove in. If they drive, do they park and stay, or do they tend to hop back in that car and come across a bridge to one of the island communities? So I think next year, this time, we'll have a little bit better picture of that,
Understood.
thanks to that investment. It would just be a guess at this point.
Okay, all right.
Um,
Maybe an easier question. What percent of people who come and stay on Isle of Palms for a week visit Charleston?
I would, based on the weather, right? I mean, truth be told, they're going to go across the bridge to a movie or to Tanger on the rainy days. 50. I don't, here's the thing. A lot of visitors that come to the beach, and I will take this back to your first question too. Help me not get into I'm going out here and we're just having a conversation. The thing we see with some of our our island visitation is that might be the second or third trip for that visitor. So Charleston, that got them here the first time.
Right.
And then they realized, wait a second, we hear this all the time to this day. You have beaches this close? Oh, wow. Next time I'm going to split my trip, or I'm going to come and just experience one of the islands and then, maybe do some of the things I didn't get to do in Charleston. Or one of the other municipalities, now that those have got more offerings and attractions as well. So I think that's why when I say 50, it's because if you're coming for the second or third trip, a lot of those folks are just trying to take advantage of that time on the beach, take advantage of these businesses, these restaurants, and maybe aren't venturing downtown or into another community as much, or hitting something. There's other parts of our region that have attractions, and so they might be doing the Patriots Point this time around or things of that nature. So we see a lot on that second, the repeat visitor, which is a benefit, we think, to the entire destination and to all our municipal partners.
Thank you.
Where would you like me to go from here? Would you like me to keep going down the Isle of Palms column, or would you like me to talk more broadly? I feel like
I think we could talk broadly, and then if we have questions, go through.
Yeah, let me ask, just so I understand the code, so to speak. under the advertising print on the first page, right in the middle there.
Yes, sir.
So you go all the way to the right, and you see these. What are they called? Hashtags?
Yes, sir.
Hashtag.
Right.
I'm guessing the hashtag means that's 100% our cost for those, that AAA living, 2 placements of full page.
Yes, sir.
Those
Exactly.
hashtags are, take that money, which is it's not itemized, but that's because of, that's confidential stuff. But they tally to the 140,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and the others are shared.
Yes, sir. You picked up on that much more quickly than many other people. Yes, sir. Those are negotiated ad buys but we, this is where we have planned to place. Print is just it's an important piece of our marketing mix, but it links back to everything else that we do as it relates to social media and digital and the website, of course.
Has that ever been done before? Have you ever put full page placements in magazines specific to Iowa Palms?
Not outside of unless it was a report to the state government. No, sir. So this, we wanted to disclose to you where we plan on being and what we plan on putting there. But we are required to keep that negotiated rate to ourselves.
I think
Yeah, that's,
I think your question was, have you placed ads, full page ads, specifically advertising IOP in the past?
Oh, specifically to Isle Palms? No, sir. That's in response to what we've heard from you all in the last year or so. We have done the community, the beaches, that's been happening for many, many, many years. But those 4 placements in particular are in response to your requests.
see, the flaw in the way you were arriving at the allocations is, I understand the rooms and the inventory and the percentage of that we have relative to the total. But what it comes down to, it just so happens that our annual spend with CDD mirrors very closely what that formula drove. I don't know the numbers for rooms and all, like as an example for Folly. But if you did this same thing for Folly, you'd be a deficit financed operation. I mean, because your Folly has come here, they've told us they're paying $25,000 to CVV on an annual basis. So if you did this formula for Folly, you're underwater. And you did the same thing for Seabrook, you're probably underwater. You did the same thing for Sullivan's, you're underwater. So really what it comes down to, it would seem is that Kiowa and IOP really are funding everyone else.
Is that a question?
Well, it's either you agree with it or you don't.
I wouldn't agree with that. No, sir. Our assessment and our intent was that Isle of Palms will be paying for a share of those campaigns.
Right, I understand that. But maybe I didn't articulate it properly.
Folly is a different, and Seabrook and Sullivan's Island just generate significantly less revenue. Theirs would look nothing like this. They don't have nearly the rooms that you all have out here. So it would look very different.
Yeah, but for instance, the overhead number, the $379,000 for the 5.5%. I mean, that's a big chunk of money.
Sure. And their contribution would be whatever their allocation, whatever their percentage is. So, I mean, just to put it in a broader picture, Mount Pleasant and North Charleston and the city of Charleston are all in this too. And they may be contributing more than that amount. So it goes back to that philosophy of the regional. What we're trying to do is grow beyond our original mission, which was to promote the region, and also address your concerns is to promote your local municipality. So everything we have done up until the last year or so has been regional. And because we really believe that people travel and don't necessarily know that they've crossed one municipality to the next. However, we also recognize that you have some needs that you want to see addressed, and we want to address those needs. So it doesn't mean abandoning one or the other. We're trying to and here, we're trying to do both. You know, and we very much believe that we can do that. So yes, let's talk about the group business. So this is group sales, and these are trade shows that our team attends. And, you know, there is an association for everything. So we attend various trade shows to book business for groups that may be meeting corporately. It may be an association meeting. It may be a family reunion. 10 people or more constitutes group business. And so we attend, this year we're attending over 35 trade shows to promote our community in this way. And you can see they're laid out everywhere from, we begin with a trade show in DC, the American Society of Association Executives. These first couple of shows at the bottom of page 1 are luxury trade shows. They're the more difficult to sell, which comes all the way down to Virtuoso, which will be in August of this year. And then, and we've totaled $43,000 for the Isle of Palms based on your room inventory towards the cost of those shows. And then other trade shows that we'll be attending, we have your percentage at 8% based on the share of full service inventory in the community. And that is a significantly smaller amount at $6,700. So, you know, this requires travel, it requires booze, it requires, you know, someone in concert with your hotels or your STRs that can book that kind of business. The next category looks at market research. As I mentioned, everything that we do is based on research, and we've allocated your cost to the Key Data program, which looks specifically at our island communities. That was a relatively new program to us about 2 years back, just so we could have a better sense of what the performance was on the islands. So that is the share of Isle of Palms for that particular program. And then from there, we do have other contracts, as Chris mentioned, with Datafy, with the Office of Tourism Analysis at the College of Charleston. And we have allocated the 5.5% against that particular cost. Moving on to destination services and promotion. This is really sort of everything else that we do. It's, you know, creating the strategy, it's making the placements, it's negotiating the buys, it's maintaining our call center and our 800 number. It's air service development, which I know may feel like, how does that benefit the Isle of Palms? It does benefit the community. And that's why we've assigned the 5.5% to these particular costs at $379 instead of allocating them any larger than that. And then the general regional promotion, we've assigned nothing here. We've got another $15.5 million that we're putting into other initiatives, into media and all kinds of things that we just didn't even assign a cost. We could put 5.5% there, but that sort of felt like it was ballooning the number and it felt not right to do that. So we didn't assign any cost there. So all that being said, our allocations lead us to a total of just under $1 million. And, you know, we'd be happy to discuss what that ratio looks like. I was really heartened to hear from you, Chaz, that you have an idea of what that should look like, because that gives us something to shoot for. So thank you for that. I'd be happy to take questions or input from anybody.
I had two
Yes, sir.
broad questions, and appreciate the presentation, the way you've done it.
It's not pretty. I know it's not pretty.
I like the numbers. This is a broad question, not specifically, Isle of Palms related. How much do y'all get, or how much did you get last year from PRT, and what was it for?
Oh, gosh.
$5 million.
What's PRT?
Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, they get regional grants. Myrtle Beach gets it, Charleston. How much I'm call us we collect?
Sure, absolutely. So we received 2 allocations from the Destination Specific Fund is what I believe you're referencing. It's a grant that the state puts out to certain size communities. You have to bring a private match to the table. You have to bring a $2 match in private monies and business partnership monies to the table for every $1 that the state's willing to give you through this grant. So to answer your question, we received $4.1 million for the first allocation. And I'm embarrassed to say I'm gonna have to look to see what the second allocation was. It was in that neighborhood again because of COVID. For the last 2 years, we've gotten an additional promotional very specific set of what we can do with revenues because of COVID.
So in the figures that you gave to us here, it doesn't include anything from PRT.
No, sir.
And the PRT money would be spent on what?
On any
Regional marketing is similar to what we have.
marketing.
Here.
Yes, sir.
That's just not.
If you were to see, now what we're looking at here is expense. We're not looking at revenue. I feel like you asked me revenue, but then you're switching to expense. Okay, so just to be clear, there is no revenue represented here, but the expense for that revenue, which is where I think you're going, would be categorized under regional destination promotion, that $15 million there.
And you have some, do you have metrics that you have to report to PRT about how you spend it? I think.
Yes, sir. We do. We're required to submit those annually by November 1st.
You invited comments, so I was going to say this. One of the things
Sure.
that bothered me from the beginning when I got on this, and you may not know, I'm a lawyer, so I'm not doing a lot of forensic accounting type work, and I looked at this, and I wondered, I said, well, where's our contract? And they said, I was told we don't have one. And I was thinking, well, this doesn't look good, but where are our metrics? And they said, we don't have a set of metrics. And so then said, well, we've got a procurement code that we ought to be following. So how did we get to you guys that are doing a phenomenal job promoting Charleston? But we didn't follow the procurement code. So these are things that caused me some concern from the beginning. And then unfortunately, you might have heard the comments before, but Mr. Burns was asking some questions, and I was asking some questions to try to find out where our money was actually going and what we have to show for it. And the response was we got that. Well, the region's growing, Charleston's growing, and we ought to be just happy. It's not your money; it's coming from tourists, kind of thing. But it does bother me. I wanted I feel like I need some assurances that our money, that I would call it our money, because we get the benefit of it, but we're also burdened. If you are here on a weekend, that the burden wanted some assurances that our money is being well spent and transparent. And we didn't feel like we had gotten what we want. This is much better, but I'm not there yet.
Sure.
And this has nothing to do with you, but both of us were told it really wasn't our business to know this, and we thought respectfully it was our business. So I appreciate what you said, but I'm skipping. That was my comment. I want to know what happens with the PRT money. It's about $15 million, and where it all went. What we get out of it?
Well, it was less than $8 million. I've got it reflected in that $15 million lump sum.
Okay. And what did we on that?
Well, that's a good question. And we will be compiling those metrics at the end of the year if that's something you're interested in seeing. But typically our metrics have aligned around rate and occupancy. Those are things that, I would love for us to discuss in our reporting to you all, because we have metrics out the wazoo. And Chris, I think, has the most recent metrics actually. Isle of Palms is killing it. I mean, rates are up incredibly. I don't know if you've tried to take a vacation lately, but and occupancy is an important measure, of course. But you'd rather have fewer people that are willing to pay more to come. But certainly those are some of the baseline metrics that we use. But if we haven't been communicating those, we should.
That led me to another comment and or question about where we're going to go in the future. You might see the bumper stickers, especially on the coast, where it says "We full, we're full." When does there ever come a time when we're just full? What are we? Where? I understand I understand and respect the challenge you have. Yeah, you have to spend the money. You don't have. We don't have a choice. We have to pay it. You have to spend it. But does there ever come a time when we're just full, when we just don't feel like we ought to have to handle more?
Well,
and how are you going to help us with that?
that's a great question. I'm a local too, so I feel your pain. Now, I'm not local to the island, but I am a local. I feel your pain. So I'll tell you that we definitely have peak and trough periods. Y'all don't need any more people out here in the summer. And downtown doesn't need any more people in April. So our marketing strategies do not focus around promoting during times when we don't need more people here. We tend to focus on those trough periods and periods when our members need the business to keep their folks employed. So it's a great question. And unfortunately, I don't have a hardcore metric like, boom, we've reached, that number, but I can tell you that we're not advertising for April for downtown. We're not, or to lure people here in April or even in the fall. We don't really need to be luring people here in the summer to the beaches, but I bet you would really love to have the business after Labor Day through Memorial Day. So that's kind of just some of the strategy that we use in our thinking of when we're placing advertising.
But I'm going to interject real quick. I think it's being a restaurant owner, you never too full. It's what Isle of Palms needs to work on is our throughput, what to do with those people when they get here. And I think that's not a job for the ATAX committee, but it's a job for everybody to figure out. So we never want to turn people away.
Well,
for sure.
We just wouldn't be advertising heavily in a already heavy.
Exactly.
You're right.
When I was asking about that, and it was I think it was on June 1st, there were several ads that you put out to come to the Isle of Palms, and it's June. And I was looking, it's taking 2 hours for people to get past our house to.
Well, I hope they use the Trooper Bob beach traffic app like I used on the way over here. Good. I hope so. That's great for a local.
And do y'all report locally to the Isle of Palms on where you've placed the advertisement? Just with our PR companies and our social media, we get a monthly report that says this is what the dollars were used. And maybe that would help ease.
That is something we could do. I will tell you, Chris actually heads up our municipal communications, and we do a quarterly communication to council. I believe we're including accommodations tax committee moving forward. We need to be so that you get the information too.
And I
we're not
think that would
expecting
be
it to be
helpful.
shared.
We go with the budget and say, well, we've decided to do A, B, and C. And
Yeah.
you go back and say, hey, we did A, B, C, and we also threw in D and E.
I will say we have not traditionally put this level of detail out for the public like that. It's usually based on metrics or something new happening in the community, and Chris can probably speak better to that than I am right now. But that's certainly something that we can look into. Did you want to add to that?
I was just gonna, share back to the metrics comment about some of the things that we do distribute and invite a deeper dive. Right? We're respectful of everybody's time. We commit to on a quarterly basis, keeping it to one page, front and back. And a couple of the things that you see regularly are your paid and owner occupancy, your average daily rate for that. And this has trended. We also, through that key data system, and this is where it's very important and helpful to finance folks, town administrators who are trying to administrators trying to budget is we have the ability to forecast. So booking pace and booked average rate. And those are four of the things, not everything. The other piece we always include, and it's been slower to come back, but I'm proud to say you've seen 2.5 times increases from first quarter of this calendar year to first quarter of 21. That is those group leads, the social reunions, the military, all of those groups that Laurie mentioned. Our sales team is out trying to create awareness and then book for the hotel properties. Sometimes that also includes rentals. Those are also included, and those numbers have jumped up considerably. I would just share because I
From
jotted this
2021?
from
Do you
2021.
have anything based off of maybe 2019?
We do a
before
lot of,
COVID?
great question. We do a lot of 19 comparison.
Yeah.
We haven't gone there, and I can't say off the top of my head. I'm happy to look at that for the group sales. We've lived in 3 different universes through this pandemic where we were trying to compare to 19, then to 20, and then to 21 actually for the islands, because the islands came back so much more quickly. And actually the dip that we saw with the shutdown wasn't ever as pronounced as we all feared it might be. So with the islands, when it comes to your general occupancy, we've been able to, especially the vacation rentals, we've been able to continue to compare year over year. Group leads different. So we're just at the point where we're bringing those back into these reports, and I only have them today against 21. Happy to get back and check on 19 for it. I actually, that's an old one that I just brought for demonstration, but I have copies of this latest quarter that was just distributed, which shows some of the, it's consistently double-digit increases when we look at year over year performance on the vacation rentals. And in fact, we created such a strong performance rate in 20 and 21 on an occupancy standpoint. And Mr. Tressler, this is kind of back to that full. That's a very relative term to who the audience is, as you said. But occupancy wise, people were getting close to full at different points along the way, certainly in some of those peak seasons. But the point I'm making there is, even though we aren't this year so far seeing that we're beating occupancy because the record was set, the bar was set so high last year, the rate continues to grow. So on the whole, it continues to present a very positive forecast when we look at how the industry as a whole continues to recover and present a very favorable picture over the next couple quarters. Does that make sense? The occupancy there versus what we're looking at with the rate.
Makes total sense. And with everything we've seen in the recovery and obviously inflation makes total sense. We're about to enter a recessionary time period.
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, and we're looking at next fiscal year's budget, we should see a downturn in that. So relative, right? If I saw, let's just say, if we went back and looked at the split of local, local advertising to regional, and let's just say it was at a 1-to-1 split, if I saw a decline in occupancy, then I would probably want to see that lever moved up a little bit from a marketing standpoint.
Yes, sir.
To take care of that deficit.
Yes.
So in terms of financial forecasting planning, do we have a mechanism to be able to measure that?
We do have, if I'm understanding your correct question, and what I love that you mentioned there is the levers, right? The agility and the increased investment that we make in the digital space allows us much greater agility. There's still value to print, and we think there will be for the foreseeable future, but that increased digital play allows the agility. It allows us to pull things off when, heaven forbid, there's that hurricane, the cone of uncertainty. So the agility is there. If I'm understanding your question, we do have the ability to forecast pace for bookings. So right now we're looking to see, the question has been, are we seeing a pullback? Are we seeing hotel or short-term rental rates from a forecast perspective declining? And we're not seeing it so far. If we were, logic would say maybe some of that inflationary mindset is starting to impact. Maybe the price of gas is starting to slow either the occupancy, therefore the booked. That's why you'll see on this report booked pace, or are the, it's economics. Is the demand not quite there? So the rates are coming down. Similar thing with airline prices, right? And we're still seeing those because the demand is just sustained in a way that has surprised us at multiple points along the way. Does that help you with the
Yep, no,
forecasting piece?
Absolutely. And then my other question, so I'm sure you guys are aware, there's been a very big shortage of supply of paper in the United States, and you've probably seen it in the print quality of magazines.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look at Garden and Gun right now, it looks like it's printed on toilet paper right now, right? But with that being said, obviously print media prices have probably been escalating. Have you guys been able, to work with them? Have you seen a dramatic increase in the overall CPMs? Are we adjusting more digitally because of that? And, due to the ROI of that particular channel, you
That's-
just pay through the
I will-
nose and just
Yeah.
suck it up.
Yeah, I can answer some of that. So our paper cost went up 40% since January. And we're having trouble finding it.
Yeah.
So at this point, we might have to buy it at that. I mean,
Yeah.
not happy about that, but so many of our partners have agreed to work with us. They are scaling back some of their publications to try to create some cost savings there, and they've agreed to help us. They're not increasing our prices. We've not experienced that yet. So that's my hope that will continue. But as this is a budget is just that. It's a plan. And that's why I said, just like we wouldn't pour more advertising dollars into an already busy season, if we were seeing that season needed help, we would push that lever down, push the gas, and we would go. So it does require us to be nimble and flexible. So
Awesome. Thank you.
thank you.
Can I, that's another great opportunity when you talk about levers. We alluded to conversations with partners. And so as our group sales team, and I'm going to go just far enough here as far as the pros, we can get them here, but they are in constant communication with the hotels across the region, but certainly in this case, specifically the 4 to 5 properties on the island to find out what mix are those properties looking for at what point in time in the year. Right now, it seems to be more not looking for those groups in the summer because the leisure demand is up there, but they are still looking for the business in the other 3 seasons. That's a constant continued conversation. And what we've noticed coming out of the pandemic is where that equilibrium is going to come between the group and the transient leisure travel is to be determined, because that leisure demand has been so strong. How much is there being placed in from an emphasis standpoint, and the hotel revenue managers, how much are they trying to shift towards more of that group business or continue to sustain the model towards the leisure traveler? That's part of that kind of conversation that blends with the forecasting model.
Laurie, one of the things that I'd like you to kind of factor in going forward, the most recent data that we have that's reliable anyway is 2019. And that showed us that the hotels on the island are roughly 30% of the ATAX revenue, and short-term rentals are 70%. Now, with the new hotel, I expect maybe that's going to be 60-40, I don't know. But it's still, the majority of the revenue that the city gets is from the short-term rentals. And I'd like to suggest that you consider that in your plan, in the budget, to somehow, I don't know how you do it, but target people who are short-term rental customers. Because the group sales is real important and the all of that stuff, but I'm looking at the budget and I'm saying, okay, maybe the short-term rental people, they're going to pick up on the social media stuff and that kind of thing. But I just ask you to kind of factor that in going forward.
Okay.
And even if you can pivot over the course of the year. And say, you know what, we can do a better job attacking that potential market.
Right. It may be, there may be a way to advertise through those, people that are booking that way or booking through a particular platform usually. So that may be worth exploring.
And the whole SEO conversation.
Yeah.
Keywords that we're
Right.
investing in. See a significant investment there. For
Yeah.
that very reason. And
Yeah.
some of the publications, Experiential are the same, that might lend more, say, a AAA audience. So there's those
Right.
have a digital component to the marketing investment. So some of that may be happening on the digital space.
Thank you for that feedback.
Have any further questions for Laurie?
Oh, come on. Day's not over yet.
We're done. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you having us.
Press on.
Yes.
One thing I want to clarify, Chaz, with the 30%, you made a comment earlier about within the 98-22 ruling, the municipality can't affect what the DMO does over the course of the year. So the process is, the DMO submits a budget, the ATAX committee reviews it, city council then votes on approving it or not approving it. And then over the course of the year, traditionally the DMO runs on that plan. And then at the end of the year, they feed back with expenditure reports on how the expenditures matched up with the budget.
Correct.
So that's kind of so this committee doesn't have the responsibility to vote on approving the budget, but we have a responsibility to review it and discuss it.
Absolutely.
So very soon we'll have them come before you all again to review the accounting of expenditures for
past
FY
year.
22.
Okay,
So now that it's been reviewed, it'll go to city council for
They-
approval.
they've already approved it.
They've approved FY 22. I'm talking about the one that was just presented today by the CBB for FY 23.
Okay, I wasn't, I thought they already approved this budget.
The CBB's budget? No. This is the first time we're discussing this.
I mean, the city council.
Council has not discussed this. They will in an upcoming meeting. First goes to you all for review, then we bring it to city council for approval. What happened was, and what may be confusing is that the FY 22 one was approved, 4 months ago?
February.
In February. But that would be the fiscal year that ends in June 30, 2022.
Right. Okay. Moving on, next item of business is discussion of standardizing the grant application.
Before we do, I appreciate what you said about, we don't vote on these things. We don't vote on this at all. Is that correct? We just review it.
That was the directive we received from Turk. When recently they submitted, sort of their new expectations moving forward. And we actually went back and checked with them because we were confused at the staff level, whether or not the ATAX committee had to approve it or make a recommendation to council to approve or reject. And they responded back to us that your role is only to review it. It is up to council to vote on whether or not to approve it.
But are we making recommendations?
No, you're not required to. You're just required to review it.
Then you share that with your review.
That's correct.
The reason I was asking, when I first came on this committee, I had asked this very question, is whether we needed to vote. I understand the process was then, yes, you you need to vote. I thought it was Desiree just said, but we voted, we would vote, thumbs up, thumbs down.
That's why, yeah, it
And
became
now-
very confusing because
So-
you do vote and recommend the city's state aid tax budget, which is the 65%. You make a recommendation to council.
So going forward, it's just as you said, from now on, we just review it.
That has been the directive we have received from the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee.
And we
Yes.
don't make any recommendations. We don't do anything other than look at it and.
Well, I think you
do
can
nothing.
make recommendations to the CBB about, you know, do you want to see anything else?
Yeah.
Do you want to see a different distribution? Do you want to see more of a local focus? Certainly, that's part of the feedback that we and they want from this committee.
Gotcha.
So in broad stroke, I really think it's, you know, we have the 65%. The budget office of the city really looks at that, carves it all up. It's putting into the budget, you know, and then they carve us out $50,000 for grants. Then we get the 30%. It goes to a DMO that is assigned. We technically do not have line item input, but we can share with them what they do. And then basically our job is to review what they said they were going to do from a dollar standpoint to basically reconcile to the end. And I think any change in a line item could be very vague in that translation. I think it's dollar to dollar. Did it make budget? Did it not? It seems to be a very tight, process. And I think really what I've heard from this group and other people isn't necessarily the relationship with the Visitors Bureau. It's actually the structure of the statute and the way that this whole thing has been designed. So if we do have individuals or the city government interested in exploring alternatives, this goes beyond this group and city council and goes to the lobbyists up in the state government to go through and change legislation. But this is a fairly straightforward process. And I do think that in light of the New Turk rulings and what has been asked of the DMOs to come through and present something not too technical for a non-marketer to understand, right? Because it could be a lot of detail, but to really understand the formula in terms of how the percentages are going to be broken down from spend and who is paying what. I think the larger question really becomes as a group is if you have a pie, and we know that we benefit when money is given to Charleston as a whole, how much of that pie should it be reserved at the local level? Is it a 50-50 minimum split? Is it a 70-30 split, et cetera, et cetera? And I think those are interesting things for future discussion, and or how do we work together when we see an economic downturn or et cetera, or worse yet, a big hurricane, right? What happens when the big storm comes and we need to be open for business? Do we see more of an allocation back to us? Those are the types of things that a large organization would be able to bring to the table than a smaller one, right? Because they're very limited in resources. So lots of interesting things, but I think a really great step. And I appreciate the work that you guys done. I know this is not an easy thing to do. Sure.
And I think to the question of whether or not to review or approve, last year, the committee felt very strongly that they wanted to send a message to city council about the budget that had been presented. And I think at the time, the budget was rejected by the committee. And that's why we went back to Turk and to fully understand what the role was and what your responsibility was regarding the 30% ATAX. So is there a downside for you all to make a vote to recommend or to approve or reject? There's no downside. You're not required to by the statute.
No, I think it would just be helpful to include the transparency, and I think to present to city council and including maybe a monthly what's been happening. So the city of Isle of Palms would understand where our money's going, and it's not static. We have to wait till the end of the fiscal year to see where our money went. We're seeing it as it happens. Just like any business would want to review their monthly P&Ls. And then maybe, again, pulling levers, we can bob and weave from there in case of a hurricane or a pending.
And that could be something I think that the committee and the, the city can request at the CBB of this budget
Yeah.
that y'all review, rather than an accounting at the end of the year of all the expenditures,
That's
and
right.
maybe quarterly reports, and having somebody from the CBB attend your upcoming meetings to tell you, this is what we're seeing, this is what we've done. Are there any changes? Like you said, is there a downturn in the economy and we have to shift the strategy or our vision, or I think that's the kind of relationship that we need to pursue and encourage between both organizations.
No, and I do think they are valuable to Alabama.
Do you guys work on internally, right? When you have to do your reviews, do you work on a quarterly, biannual, annual basis with your departments, right?
We absolutely do. Yes, sir. Lori, if you don't mind, just so that we can capture you for the audio. Thank you.
We absolutely do. And we produce, Chris, let me just share. This is an old report, but is this, oh, I'm sorry, it's this quarter. This is what we produce for city council each quarter and send to them. We clearly need to include the accommodations tax committee to that communications, and we're happy to do that. And if there's a metric that you see that you'd like to see added that we don't have, like, Chrissy, one of the things you mentioned was specifically where we're placing our ads. We don't have that in that piece. That might be something more of a different kind of communication instead of a produce it to the world, but we would share that with you all.
Great.
And we would welcome the opportunity to come before you quarterly.
Then I had one question, just might be a little off topic. On your website, it seems to be a heavily like above what we call above the fold, right? First page if you're in mobile, it goes right to lodging, right? Check-in date, okay, which is to me somewhat unusual if you're promoting the region or the area, et cetera, unless there is a revenue opportunity of affiliate marketing, of capturing commission for booking direct to site, and that's not it.
No, sir. Stems from our philosophy that everything we do is geared towards booking a room night, because what our data shows us is that when people spend the night, then they're going to visit the attraction, then they're going to eat out at our restaurants, then they're going to go shopping, then they're going to experience our recreation. So everything we do is generated towards not just, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the day tripper, but everything we're doing is gearing towards getting people to spend the night in the community, because they spend differently and they spend more than someone who just comes here for the day. But no, sir, we don't receive any kickbacks or commissions from bookings from.
Kickbacks, it's pure.
It's totally right. That's a service that's just right. But that is a service that we provide to our members.
Okay, got it.
And thinking about what generates the state ATAX is those room nights. It's
Sure.
those heads in beds.
Sure.
So we certainly want to, I've heard the term, feed the beast. That's what continues to generate more money. So the focus on spending the night is what ultimately generates
It's where the economic
the revenue
party begins.
and what's required to spend the money on.
And any chance that you guys have website stats on I think you guys were running 250,000 unique, something like that a month? Is that in the ballpark?
I don't.
You don't?
I'm
know.
sure that we can
I'm
get
not
those
quite up.
statistics
So-
for you. I just don't have them off the top
just-
of my head.
It would be interesting just to know from those people who land, who actually end up the conversion to the beach page,
Mhm.
just to see,
Sure.
What kind of traffic we're
We're happy to
generating
get
off of
that for you.
Again, we're way in the weeds here.
Mhm.
But great questions, and some of those analytics that I think can be part of the ongoing conversation, including for example, the Charleston area beaches page. Pre-pandemic, we were including some of that in some of these reports. This has been an evolution like anything else, right? What do we think is most meaningful coming out of the recovery or coming through the recovery? We've been adjusting a bit, knowing that everybody was looking again for the return of that overnight visitor. But to your point around the web analytics, they are incredible what that Blue Ion team and our marketing team can do. And including the specificity of, for example, the islands pages, that Charleston area beaches site we talked about earlier, by island, how are things looking, and what is that generating in click-throughs to member businesses? Or now that we're going to start promoting holistically, how is that converting into click-throughs? We don't control obviously that end, that transaction, but we certainly can get as far as possible.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is discussion of standardizing the grant application process for state ATAX funds. Want to leave that discussion?
Sure,
with
if you,
your
if
hand
you
up?
want me to, I've handed to all of you a one pager, essentially with what we're trying to achieve and what we're proposing. The city historically, as we talked about earlier, budgets a certain amount, which has been $50,000 to consider for programs and sponsorships throughout the year. And we have an application that's online, folks submitted. Once they're received by the staff, if we have a meeting scheduled and if one of your meetings, we would include it on the agenda. They would be asked to present, you all consider it, make a recommendation to city council, and that would happen throughout the year. What we have seen is that most municipalities handle this through a standardized annual process. So you advertise the deadline, you explain what the eligibility criteria is, and you advertise it through newspaper, social media, the city's website and whatnot, and solicit applications, solicit proposals from nonprofit organizations for activities, events, programs that fall within the statutorily tourism related expenditures that are eligible for state ATAX funding. I think, one of the things that we want to do and we've been trying to do with other processes is just to streamline it. And one proposal is for us to establish, again, a one-time application process. It could even include a workshop. Ray and I have talked about this. Other communities do it, but the city would put together a workshop for people that are interested in applying. We explain the eligibility criteria, and you would receive all the applications at one time, review them, make recommendations for allocating funds to them, and then those would be embedded in our budgeting process, which you can see there. We start in February, and our goal is always to finish and finalize and get it ratified by May. Right now, the budget has already been approved, so we have we have two options. We can, for the remaining of for this fiscal year that's starting in July 1st, we can do it like we've always done and kind of consider applications as we go and set up a process to start for FY24, which would be the following fiscal year. Or we can set up a similar timeline for this fiscal year to receive applications at once and kind of do the same thing. I would like for the process to be during the budgeting and development process. Obviously, we can't do that because it's already done for FY23, but I just want to get feedback from you all about what's being proposed. And I guess our goal is to really streamline and not need to call meetings as we go along throughout the year. Y'all can plan ahead. Y'all are very busy people. And at least for that particular task, we can be a little bit more organized than I think we've been in the past for considering these applications. So just put together a couple of thoughts for you all to noodle on and kind of discuss a proposed or suggested timeline for next year. And two things that I think would benefit this process. One is for this committee to establish what your the criteria, the evaluation criteria. Some folks, just look at the letter of the law. Is it a tourism related expenditure, therefore eligible? There are other communities that have established more specific criteria, as in what's the return on investment? Are you just looking at programs or sponsorships or events that generate an overnight visitor? Because as we've said, that's what generates the state ATAX dollars. So I think it would be helpful for the applicant to know what you are looking for when considering these applications so that they can better prepare their grant proposal. So that's just something to think about. It's something that we can work on at our next meeting, just establishing a handful of criteria that people should expect to answer when they come before you all. And then the second thing that would be new is establishing reporting requirements that would create some type of paper trail and some just a report that we can pull back and verify how those funds that were granted to these organizations, how they were spent. And that's not necessarily something that would need to be reviewed by the committee. That could be reviewed at the staff level, or you can review it. That's totally up to you all. But that's something that's, I think, missing that I think would do wonders, I guess, for, transparency and just our fiduciary responsibility to ensure that these funds are spent in accordance with state law.
Right, I think the feedback component is important because of what we see the same groups year over year. And we've asked questions and from this committee to the presenters to say, well, okay, last year, what were the results? How many participants? How many people stayed overnight? And the feedback is really sparse. So if we had a requirement in the application, they understand going in that we're going to be looking for feedback after the event on whatever is the criteria is if it's an overnight stay, is it, whatever it might be. And I think that would help this group when the same organization comes back for a second, third year.
And if it's somebody that cannot fulfill that requirement, that may be something you take into consideration for future funding requests. I think it just helps, it creates a sense of accountability that I don't think it exists today. Which I think would be important for the city and this committee, obviously. So if everybody's okay with going this direction, we can put together a more thorough proposal, what that would look like, and then maybe at your next meeting, we can all agree, or the committee can agree on a set of evaluation criteria, what you want to see, what you want to look at. Would that be?
I would recommend we target fiscal 24 to be in place, but I've looked at a number of other municipalities and they start a lot earlier. Some of them August, September, they start this process with going out for the requests for applications and then having the workshops in like September, October, and then the application deadline is like January. And so they just start early. I don't know why they do that unless they might have experience to say, that works for them better.
Yeah.
And I just, my observation is, government work moves slow. And I think the more chance we give it to be successful, that would be starting earlier.
And if everybody feels comfortable with that, we can certainly adjust the suggested timeline in this sheet, and maybe we start earlier than December.
Like this morning, I looked at Beaufort, I looked at Greenville, I looked at Hilton Head, and all of those ATAX committees, they all do this, and you can get an idea of questions on the applications and things that we might be missing that we hadn't thought of.
Kiowa and Mount Pleasant also do a good job, and they have a matrix they go by where they rate things, and it helps. Thank you very much for doing this. It's a good move forward. It allows Debbie to budget much more effectively if everybody knows going in what we're looking at. I would hope that we get more, that there'd be more than $50,000 that would be available, but that's.
Well, that's another topic for another day.
But what I'll do is I'll put together something I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, we're not gonna plagiarize either, but we're just gonna take ideas from other people that have used it and
Yeah.
and done it well and kind of bring it to you all at your next meeting, and maybe we can spend some time working and finalizing that, and we can go ahead and get it started for the next fiscal year.
Okay, sounds good. Next meeting. I've got a couple of things that I want to discuss with this group, but I'm not going to do it today. So yeah, I have things in mind for the next meeting. So, are you back? Present? July 21.
When did I say I was going to Argentina?
You say you're leaving the 14th to the 20th.
Okay, I'll be back on the 21st.
Yeah, I would propose a meeting for July 21st. Look at the city calendar and all you have is a farmer's market.
July 21st.
That's a Thursday.
That day does not work for me.
Okay, how about 22nd?
Thursday and Friday of that week do not work for me. We can do earlier.
Okay,
Against.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah, I would think that for you would be very,
Mondays are good. Ways and means is on my.
Is that here?
I've got doctor appointments that day.
what about July 19th?
Do it in the afternoon. I've got another doctor's.
Or the 12th,
Pardon?
July 12th?
No, the 19th is fine for the afternoon.
Okay.
If you wanted to do it then.
That's right. So July 19th, when in the afternoon? Is that good for
I mean,
1 o'clock? Does
Yeah.
that work for everybody else?
What day is it?
It's a
19th is
Tuesday.
And the business of the committee is for,
Yeah, what would we be discussing at that meeting?
Well, I want to talk about, going forward for the next year, increasing the $50,000 placeholder for specific activities that would improve the, not only the tourist experience, but the resident experience. Putting money aside that this committee can go out to the residents and solicit things that they would like to see done. And let this committee consider them, have money put in place on a budget for fiscal 24. And then have this committee recommend to the city that they consider that, those projects, so to speak.
Is that something that y'all feel need to talk about in July, or can it wait?
No, that can certainly wait. But I just want to get it, I want to get it started, so it doesn't.
Desiree, what is the mechanism for the change to the budget? Because it's not based on, it's not our recommendation to increase or change the structure. So what is the actual mechanism that triggers the budget, either at 50 an increase or a percentage change? Is that's council issue?
So that would take place, that would take effect for the next fiscal year, which we'll start developing it in February of next year. So our current budget has already been approved for FY 23. Not saying that if you exceed applications over 50,000, you can still make a recommendation at that time for council to approve it, even if you're kind of exceeded your 50,000. But I think what Ray wants to do to increase that threshold, that would happen it would start early next year for the next fiscal year budget. So I guess there's no sense of urgency,
No.
I think, for
No.
that to take place.
No, it's not a sense of urgency, it's just, getting it on the table.
So I guess the question, does the committee feel like you have to have a meeting in July to start this discussion, or y'all wanna look at another month?
I personally don't think it's a requirement for July.
I was,
For me.
you were talking about polling the community or advertising that we're gonna have a single meeting and everybody needs to apply at the same time. I think that ball needs to start rolling August or September so that we can have time for them to be accepted and y'all choose or vote on them in the January-ish period. So starting in February, we can put them in the budget.
Yeah, it's not like a grant application. What I'm envisioning, I mean, it could be, I guess, but I'm envisioning more ideas coming from the residents, so whether they want bike racks or they want improvement on a beach access path, or maybe there's something at the new down by the restaurant, the water access situation, doing something there to improve park benches. I don't know, but it just seems to me like, you know, there's so much money being generated and very little of it is going back to the enhancing the tourism experience, like Folly would say, or also at the same time benefiting residents.
Well, we cannot, it should not benefit residents, it's specific to tourists.
Right, but okay, we won't say that.
There's some crossing.
So do we want to look at August or do,
Sure.
I mean, it's
Let's
up
look
to
at
you all.
End of August, right?
Yeah, July is particularly busy time for us.
Okay, we'll forget July.
So what about August 16th?
16.
Yes, or the 9th?
I would
Does-
prefer
I was
like
gonna say, does
later.
Monday works best for you then.
Well, you know, school's getting out the first 2 weeks of all, where school starts, I guess, for the kids. So, you know, everything starts slowing down like the week of the 22nd. Here in Charles, I mean, here in Alabama.
So we could look at the 23rd.
That would be a city council meeting.
Yeah, but we can, that's at 6.
You don't mind, you just stay all day.
I'm here anyway.
Hopefully you'll have air conditioning
23rd at
at 1 o'clock. All right. So this will be the next one. All right.
So August 23rd at 1. Just have to be done by 5. 4 hours should be enough, right?
Just turn off the AC. That's all you have to do.
That didn't work today.
Work today.
It didn't work. I thought it would.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Later.
all in favor?
I.
Aye.